Chapter 2196. The dragon laughed evilly. Of course, back when I was being suppressed, I predicted that one day someone would come to snatch the evil dragon Bible. So, I purposely changed some of the contents of the book. No wonder. As he spoke, the dragon plucked a scale from his neck. As drops of dragon blood dripped down, the scale floated in front of Suyu. On the surface of the scales were densely packed words. This is the original version of the evil dragon Bible. Suyu took the scale and compared it to the original version. Indeed, it was much more exquisite. He studied the nirvana of the evil dragon again and found that it was even more profound. If he used it again, it should be able to increase its power even more. Then, he looked at the second chapter, The Evil Dragon Heavenly Defense. After reading it, the second chapter, which had been difficult to comprehend before, immediately made some headway. The dragon said, "I have studied the Evil Dragon Bible for many years and have gained some insights. Sir, are you willing to listen? Speak." Suyu's eyes lit up. It had been suppressed for countless years and had nothing else to do. It had been studying this book in its free time. After so many years, its level of comprehension was far beyond that of an ordinary person. According to my understanding, the nirvana of the evil dragon is a basic chapter, which is the foundation for later cultivation. If this chapter is not completed, it will be difficult to continue cultivation in the future, the dragon said as it rolled its eyes. Suyu nodded. During his brief comprehension, just now, he had indeed sensed a weak connection between the second chapter and the first chapter. And then, the first chapter is the foundation, while the second chapter is prepared for the Pathmaster to strengthen his Tao body. This technique can only be cultivated when breaking through to the Tao body. Once you break through to the Pathmaster level, it will be useless. Hearing this, Suyu was slightly confused. The Tao body was already a rare, tough body in the world. There were not many things that could harm it. If it was strengthened, what kind of level would it reach? In a dragon race, there's a physique that surpasses the Tao body. It is called the heavenly dragon body. Throughout history, only the Dragon Emperor has been able to successfully cultivate it. As for the rest of the dragon race, except for a few talented or lucky ones, few have succeeded. However, according to my research, the second chapter of the Evil Dragon Bible was created for the heavenly dragon body. The dragon's eyes were burning with passion. Heavenly dragon body? Suyu squinted and said, "How strong is this physique?" "Very strong. Ordinary bodies would be crushed by the heavenly dragon body." The Dragon Emperor was able to intimidate the dragon clan, and the heavenly dragon body was one of the things he relied on. Upon hearing this, Suyu had a thoughtful look on his face. He said, "Keep watch for me." Of course, he was still worried after hearing the evil dragon's words. It was better to rely on himself to comprehend it. Entering the state of time acceleration, Suyu immediately started to comprehend it. A few months later, under the state of time acceleration, it took him no less than a few hundred years to comprehend the complete evil dragon imperial heaven. Just as the evil dragon had said, the second chapter was tailor-made for the body of Tianlong Taoism. Once the heavenly dragon Tao body was mastered, he wouldn't need to fear the domains of ordinary Tao lords, and he could even rely on his body to destroy domains with brute force. He could be said to be invincible. Suyu was extremely tempted. As Xiao Chan circulated the dragon blood in his body, he executed the evil dragon's nirvana, transforming into a half-human, half-dragon form and cultivating the evil dragon imperial heaven. At the same time, he ordered the evil dragon to release the power of heaven and earth within the dragon pearl and began to transform. The evil dragon nodded and poured out the power of heaven and earth within the dragon pearl. All of a sudden, Suyu felt as if his body was about to be torn apart, and he was in extreme pain. He subconsciously wanted to shout for it to stop, but if he did, he would never be able to step into the Tao Lord realm again. Clenching his teeth, Suyu silently endured the drastic changes in his body. First, the bones in his body turned into powder bit by bit. Then, his muscles were pulled apart bit by bit, and they were tempered again under the nourishment of the power of heaven and earth. Then his skin cracked inch by inch. In a short moment, His whole body turned into a horrifying, bloody man. However, this was only the beginning. Destruction was followed by reconstruction. The pain of reconstruction was far worse than destruction. His bones, which had turned into powder, absorbed the power of heaven and earth and reformed. One grain reunited with another, then a pile reunited with a piece reunited with a piece, and finally, a strand. The whole process was like reconstruction. The only difference was that his soul was awake now, and the boundless pain stimulated his soul. The changes in his bones alone were enough to make more than half of people faint from the pain. Once they fainted, their Tao transformation would end here. Then it was his muscles which were reforming bit by bit. The process was extremely slow. At the same time, his skin was also reforming. It should have been over in the time it took to drink a cup of tea, but in Su Yu's senses, it felt like a whole day had passed. When everything stopped, the dragon body that he had transformed into had changed greatly. The hideous, pitch-black half-dragon body was now completely platinum. His whole body was covered with beautiful platinum scales, which shone brightly in the silent nothingness. It gave people a sense of holiness and majesty. Evil Dragon, who had witnessed the whole process, was overjoyed. It's true. Platinum scales, the symbol of the heavenly dragon body. So you thought for a moment, then took out the human demon's Tao body. He clenched a dragon claw and slammed it hard on the human demon's body. Without any resistance, the human demon's body was smashed into pieces by a single punch. Seeing this, Su Yu's eyes were filled with joy. Is this the heavenly dragon body? It was unimaginably powerful. Under normal circumstances, even if Su Yu had the Tao body, he would at most be on par with the human demon's body. With this body, he believed that he would be able to give many path masters an unexpected surprise. Thank you for the reminder. Su Yu looked at Evil Dragon. He could have remained silent. Evil Dragon sighed. Why do I need to thank you? I should be the one thanking you. Let me go, and give me the power to recover my cultivation. Same to you. Su Yu smiled lightly. What are your plans? He decided to let Evil Dragon live. Looking at the boundless world, Evil Dragon laughed self-mockingly. Where else can I go? If you don't mind, I am willing to follow you. Without much consideration, Su Yu agreed. Evil Dragon's comprehension of the Evil Dragon Bible far exceeded that of others. With it by his side, he should be able to comprehend the scripture even faster. Putting it into the space of the Buddha pearl, Su Yu looked at the astrolabe and muttered to himself, Am I a spy in the Pirate Alliance? To be precise, I was originally a member of the Pirate Alliance. Whose spy am I now? With that in mind, he stepped into the void and headed there. Several months later, Heavenly Oasis Civilization, a 6-star civilization that had been occupied by pirates for many years. Outside the civilization, countless pirate ships of all sizes were gathered. Seeing this, Su Yu sighed silently. If he wanted to completely destroy the Pirate Alliance, he might have to carry out another large-scale attack like the last time. However, the Pirate Alliance, which had suffered once, would not be easily fooled again. However, as Golden-Eyed Lang Jun had said, the current Pirate Alliance was madly recruiting pirates. Many Void Wanderers came to join the Pirate Alliance because of its reputation. Among them, there must be spies from the other 6 families. The Pirate Alliance was aware of this as well. Hence, they set up strict inspections. Chapter 2197. Everyone who joined the pirates had to go through a series of identity checks. If they were suspected of being spies, they would not be able to return. Su Yu asked around and found out that the top 10 pirates were all recruiting. Among them, the Sea Wolves pirates offered the most generous recruitment rewards. The Sea Wolves pirates suffered the most casualties when they were besieged by the 7 civilizations last time. Not only did they lose their main ships and most of the small and medium-sized fleets, but they also lost 2 deputy leaders, leaving only the Sea Wolves Pathmaster. In order to regain their former glory and avoid being annexed by the other 9 great pirates, the Sea Wolves pirates did not hesitate to spend many years to recruit pirates. Therefore, they attracted a considerable number of people to join them. Su Yu pondered for a long time. He was a member of the Sea Wolf Pirates before. Now, he had committed a major crime in the #1 civilization. Joining the Sea Wolves pirates now should be the best time to enter their core. With that in mind, Suyu immediately set off for the recruitment area of the Sea Wolves pirates. The Sea Wolves pirates, who usually did not show their faces, personally sat in front of a giant ship to observe the identity check and martial strength assessment. Their methods of identity check originated from the way the 7 civilizations identified their enemies. There were 7 jade artifacts on the inspection platform, each of which contained the essence blood of an aristocratic family. As long as someone from the 7 civilizations touched the jade artifact, there would be a corresponding reaction. Of course, if there was a traitor from the 7 civilizations, he would have to declare in advance that he was a member of the 7 civilizations and accept the soul-searching inspection of the Sea Wolves Pathmaster before he could join them. The whole process was simple but not confusing. It was not difficult to cheat and sneak in. Suyu joined the queue as a newcomer. When his identity was checked, he easily passed since he did not have the bloodline of the 7 civilizations. Come here and wait for the martial strength assessment. After passing the identity check, someone led him to the other end of the deck. There were already tens of thousands of people gathered there. They were divided into different square formations according to their cultivation. Release your power of desolation and have a look, the guide, who was a half-step pathmaster, said. Suyu clenched his fist, and a pure power of desolation poured out. Half-step pathmaster. The guide's eyes lit up. What the Sea Wolves pirates lacked most now were elite experts. Come here. His attitude immediately became much gentler, and he led Suyu to a quiet cabin on the ship. Rows of beautiful pirate girls were moving back and forth, serving the 2 men inside. They were of different ages, one in her 80s and the other in her 40s. Suyu's entrance naturally attracted their attention. He looked up and was a little surprised. Since he was able to enter this room, it was sufficient to show that he was a half-step Dowlord. However, a half-step Dowlord at such a young age should be a top-rate genius fostered by a 7 pinnacle civilization or a 6-star civilization, right? Suyu, said the guide. The 3 of you should get to know each other. Who knows, you might become colleagues in the future. The guide smiled and closed the cabin door. The old man and the middle-aged man looked at Suyu with interest. They stood up, cupped their fists, and said, My young friend, you have amazing talents. Su of them. He's Su of the 2. Seeing that although Suyu was young, he was not arrogant at all, the 2 of them could not help but praise him. He heated to be. 2. Of 2. With your aptitude, no matter where you go, you will be put in an important position, right? The old man asked curiously. The Su path, I killed the people of the sea, of pirates. The middle-aged. To Su to the men. Of Su. The people, the 1, 2 of the people to Su of. Asked. Suyu said helplessly, I killed about half of the geniuses of the first peerless family. Suyu said helplessly, I've probably killed half of the geniuses from the branch of the #1 peerless family. Are you talking about the first peerless family of the first peerless family? You mean the first peerless family of the 7 civilizations? Yes. The middle-aged man gasped. He looked at Suyu again and asked, How should I address you? Mr. Wuchen. What? The old man cried out in surprise. You are Mr. Wuchen, wanted by the first peerless family for 10 million Dao coins? The middle-aged man was surprised. Old Poison, have you heard of him? How could I not? His fame has already spread to the nearby 6-star civilizations. The old man looked at Suyu in surprise. It is said that Mr. Wuchen killed more than 300 geniuses of the first peerless family's branch in the Broken Sky Mountain. He even violated Biyun Hongxian and almost got away with it. Wait, Suyu blinked. If he said he killed the disciple of the first peerless family's branch, he would admit it. If he said he killed more than 300 people, fine, he would admit it. But he violated Biyun Hongxian? The accusation that the golden-eyed Lang Jun made up was too unreliable. I heard that he almost got away with it. He had stripped Biyun Hongxian naked and was about to do it when the enraged elders arrived. He had no choice but to flee. I also heard that among the 300 geniuses he killed, none of the beautiful women could escape his clutches. Suyu's forehead was full of black lines. Could he be any more outrageous? Had he already been identified by the outside world as a homicidal maniac and a lecher? Mr. Wuchen, look at your face. Are these rumors wrong? The middle-aged man asked. What could Suyu say? That the golden-eyed Lang Jun was spreading fake news? More or less, Suyu said with a stiff face. The old man and the middle-aged man looked at him with admiration. Mr. Wuchen is really a role model for us pirates. I heard that Byun Hongxian is as beautiful as a fairy. Many people would be envious of you if you could get close to her. Suyu's lips twitched. These two shameless old men. May I ask who you are? The old man laughed hoarsely. I am Poison Oracle. I am not as famous as Old Poison. I am Tian Shui Swordsman. Suyu greeted the two of them. Both of them had a good impression of Suyu. Moreover, they were new pirates and would inevitably be ostracized by the older pirates. Hence, they wanted to mend their relationship with Suyu and form an alliance. There is still some time before the martial arts assessment. How about we discuss the martial path? Poison Oracle asked. Tian Shui Swordsman clapped his hands and laughed. That's exactly what I was thinking. The time they had spent cultivating was far longer than Suyu's. In terms of martial arts experience, they were naturally superior to Suyu. However, when it came to the actual discussion, Poison Oracle and Tian Shui Swordsman gradually quietened down. They turned to listen to Suyu's explanations. Every time they discussed the difficulties of the martial path, they would gain new insights from Suyu's explanations. Gradually, they could not help but turn their bodies sideways, like students listening to a teacher's lecture. Suyu only stopped when there was a commotion outside the cabin. He then said with a faint smile, Why don't we end today's martial arts discussion and continue on another day? Poison Oracle and Tian Shui Swordsman suddenly returned to reality from their discussion. They felt a sense of loss. Tian Shui Swordsman cupped his fists and said, Listening to your words is better than studying for 10 years. Poison Oracle also sighed with emotion. I have cultivated for my whole life, but my understanding of the martial path is still inferior to you. I am truly ashamed. So you laughed softly. Seniors, you are flattering me. I just happen to know some things. It's nothing. Seeing that Suyu is so knowledgeable about the martial path, yet he was still so modest, the two of them admired him from the bottom of their hearts. It was no wonder that he could achieve such great achievements at such a young age. Creak. At that moment, the door was pushed open. The guide brought in a young man who looked like he was in his 30s. His whole body was like a stone. His hair was like threads of mud, and his eyes were like two purple gems. The most unique thing about him was the broadsword on his back. The stone sword. Tian Shui Swordsman and Poison Oracle cried out in surprise when they saw this person. They immediately stood up and greeted him. Lord Stone Sword, you are here too. Suyu was surprised. Is this person famous? He stood up and cupped his fists in greeting. However, the Stone Sword was an extremely arrogant person. He nodded at the three of them indifferently, then took a seat alone and ignored everyone else. Suyu and the other two were snubbed. They returned to their seats awkwardly. Who is the Stone Sword? Suyu asked. Poison Oracle looked at Suyu in surprise. You don't know him? He is already a being whose body and soul have been transformed. He is only a step away from becoming a Pathmaster. His ability can be ranked in the top 100 among the 10 million civilizations in the vicinity. Of course, the top 100 was because there were no Pathmasters participating in the ranking. That's right, Tian Shui Swordsman said. His ability is powerful not only because of his Taoist body and soul. He has a trace of the bloodline of the Heavenly Stone Clan, an upper-class race. The power of that stone sword is not inferior to a Taoist artifact's fairy embryo. In a real battle, there are no more than 100 people below the Pathmaster who could defeat him. Suyu suddenly understood. His Taoist body and soul had been transformed at the same time. He wondered if he could withstand a blow from his heavenly dragon Taoist body. Half a day later, the cabin door was opened again. The person who led them was a young girl who looked about 16 or 17 years old. Her face was carved from jade and was extremely beautiful. She was as lovable as a porcelain doll. A pink lotus flower was blooming on her forehead. Poison Oracle and Tian Shui Swordsman were shocked once again. The Star Lady of the Lotus Sacred Star, a 6-star civilization? Even the arrogant sword in the stone frowned when he saw this woman. Traces of battle intent appeared in his eyes. This time, before Suyu could ask, Poison Oracle lowered his voice and said solemnly, "Oh my God, I've seen a ghost. A famous playboy like the Stone Sword is willing to join the pirates. But even the Star Lady of the Lotus Sacred Star is here." Tian Shui Swordsman said, "I heard that the Lotus Sacred Star only elects a Star Lady every 100 years. Why would such an important person join the pirates?" Tian Shui Swordsman said, "The Lotus Sacred Star only elects a Star Lady every 100 years. Why would such an important person join the pirates?" The Lotus Sacred Star was an existence whose ability far surpassed a 6-star civilization, but was slightly weaker than a 7-star civilization. The Star Lady was an iconic figure who led an era, and the Sacred Star often poured a lot of effort into her. The Star Lady was an iconic figure who led an era, and the Sacred Star had invested a great deal of effort into her. Suyu's eyes flickered slightly. The Seawolves pirates alone had sent so many top talents whose names were unknown. Could it be that there was an unknown reason behind it? Chapter 2198. Hello, everyone. The Star Lady smiled at them in a lively manner. The Sky Snow Swordsman and the Poisonous Mathematician responded politely, while Suyu nodded with a smile. "Since you've all met each other, let's go to see the leader now. He will personally observe your martial arts test." The guide smiled warmly. Everyone nodded slightly, and there wasn't much change in their expressions. With their cultivations, joining the Seawolves pirates was a sure thing. The only difference was that the 5 of them would be assigned different positions. As far as they knew, every group of pirates usually had 2 deputy leaders and 10 Hellmasters. The deputy leader's power was second only to the leader, while the Hellmasters had to listen to the deputy leader's orders and control a fleet. Among the 5 of them, only 2 could become deputy leaders, while the other 3 would be reduced to Hellmasters. None of them were willing to listen to another person while being a half-step Pathmaster. Therefore, in the following martial arts test, Suyu, the Sky Snow Swordsman, and the others wouldn't hold back. Led by the guide, they came to the deck. On the spacious deck, there was an arena, which had been sealed by the Pathmaster. All the experts could compete on it. Above the arena, there was a throne floating in the air. Sitting on the throne was Sea Wolf Down Master, who was frowning. The Sea Wolves pirates had suffered a great loss in the battle several years ago. They still didn't show any signs of recovering. On the other hand, Xiaoya had the foresight to lead her pirates out of the encirclement first. She had escaped unscathed. Now, Xiaoya was the #1 pirate among the top 10 pirates, and she seemed to be dominating the pirate alliance. In theory, this open recruitment of pirates should be an opportunity for her to turn the tables. However, what made Sea Wolf Down Master despair was that he had heard that several famous geniuses in the nearby starfields had chosen to join Xiaoya. This made it difficult for Sea Wolf Down Master to feel happy. "Leader, I've brought them here." Sea Wolf Down Master came back to his senses and looked at Suyu. He was slightly taken aback. He naturally remembered Suyu, the half-step Pathmaster who had overdrafted his body, picked up by his 2 former deputy leaders. He had thought that Suyu had died in the battle. He didn't expect that Suyu was still alive and had appeared in front of him again. A calm look flashed across his eyes as he looked at the other 2. When he discovered that it was the rather famous Poisonous Mathematician and Sky Snow Bladesman, his gloomy face revealed a trace of a smile. There were still 2 good seedlings. When he looked at the sword in the stone, a look of surprise flashed across his eyes. Sword in the stone? A half-step Dowlord ranked in the top 100. Such a person actually defected to him? Dowlord Sea Wolf was overjoyed. However, when he looked at the Star Maiden at the end, his pupils constricted, and he swiftly stood up from his throne with wild joy in his heart. Stargirl? Every generation's Star Lady of the Lotus Sacred Star was at least in the top 20. His strength was comparable to any of the heirs of any of the 7 ultimate civilizations. Such a person actually came to seek refuge with him? After all, he was a Taoist master. After a brief moment of ecstasy, he quickly regained his composure and said calmly, let the examination begin. With a flick of his sleeve, a stone tablet appeared. Light flowed on the surface of the steel, and wisps of spatial energy spread out from it. Draw lots to determine the order. Lord Sea Wolf waved his hand, and 5 shining jade slips appeared. There is a number on each of them, from 1 to 5. The number you get will determine your rank in the examination. Do you have any objections? Everyone was silent for a while. The sword in the stone jumped into the air and grabbed one of the jade slips. After erasing the radiance on it, it showed the number 3. Then it was the Star Maiden's turn. She grabbed the jade slips on the rightmost side, and the radiance on it disappeared, revealing the number 4. He the fourth. Sky Snow Bladesman and Poisonous Mathematician each took 1 jade slips. They were ranked 2nd and 1st, respectively. Only 1 jade slips was left, and it was obvious that Suyu was ranked 5th. After the ranking was done, Poisonous Mathematician went to the front of the steel and placed his hand on it. The rotating radiance immediately sucked him in. After the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, Poisonous Mathematician fell out of the steel in a sorry state. He was gasping for breath, and there were many wounds on his body. Tick! A series of numbers appeared on the steel behind him. It showed that he had a strength of 1,800 points. Sea Wolf Pathmaster nodded with satisfaction. Not bad. Inside the steel are 9 remnant shadows that I left behind, and each of them represents a stage of my strength. You will fight with my remnant shadows from the past, from the weakest to the strongest, until you are defeated and fall out of the steel. Based on your performance in the steel, your strength will be automatically evaluated. Sea Wolf Pathmaster explained the rules. The arrogant sword in the stone asked, "What if I defeat all of your remnant shadows?" Upon hearing this, Sea Wolf Pathmaster didn't get angry. Instead, he laughed heartily. "If you are really that capable, I will let you be the leader." The 9th remnant shadow in the steel was none other than Sea Wolf Pathmaster. Who could fight him? Who was at the level of the Pathmaster? The second one began. Sky Snow Bladesman entered, and after the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, he came out in a sorry state. He shook his head at the crowd with a bitter smile. The steel behind him let out a tick, and the number 2,100 appeared. "I'm sorry." Sky Snow Bladesman laughed at himself. He was quite satisfied with his overall performance in the steel. He even revealed that he was stronger than Poison Calculator. However, with people like the Sword in the Stone and Star Lady in front of him, his strength was not enough. Not bad. Sea Wolf Pathmaster gave a positive evaluation. He then looked at the Sword in the Stone with anticipation. Next, the Sword in the Stone. The Sword in the Stone stepped into the steel expressionlessly. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, there was still no movement from him. After the time it takes for 2 incense sticks to burn, the steel's vortex finally shook violently. Suddenly, a sharp sword chi shot out from the inside. The Sword in the Stone held the stone sword with both hands and held it horizontally across his chest as he flew out. Poison Calculator and Sky Snow Bladesman were secretly shocked. He had lasted twice as long as them, which meant that he had defeated more remnant shadows. Tick! A string of shocking numbers flashed on the steel. 4,700. That was more than twice as long as them. 2 times more. Sky Snow Bladesman swallowed his saliva and looked at the Sword in the Stone with deep respect. As expected of the famous Sword in the Stone, his combat strength was just too strong. He and Poison Calculator were no match for the Sword in the Stone, even if they worked together. Great! Sea Wolf Pathmaster clapped his hands and laughed. He was extremely satisfied. Back then, Jiang Nanyue and Du Buchan, the 2 deputy leaders, only had slightly more than 3,000 martial strength. The Sword in the Stone was just too much stronger than them. The Sword in the Stone shook his head regretfully. "I'm not good enough." He was still not satisfied with such results, which showed how high his expectations were. Next, Star Lady. Sea Wolf Pathmaster's voice trembled, and his eyes were filled with anticipation. Chapter 2199. Time passed little by little. 1 incense stick's worth of time, 2 incense sticks worth of time. Everyone became nervous. The longer she stayed inside, the stronger her potential was. 2 incense sticks worth of time was enough to prove that her combat power wasn't inferior to the stone sword. However, there was still no sign of her coming out. At the 3rd incense stick's worth of time, a fragrant wind came from inside, and the Star Maiden walked out with a smile on her face. 3 incense sticks worth of time. The stone sword stared at the stone tablet with a gloomy face. The Sky's Snow Bladesman, Poison Mathematician, and the Sea-Wolf Path Master all stared at the stone tablet without blinking. How powerful would her combat power be if she could stay inside for 3 incense sticks worth of time? Beep! With a crisp sound, a series of clear words appeared on the screen. 7,000. The stone sword hugged the stone sword in his arms tightly when he saw the number. His eyes were filled with unwillingness. 7,000. It wasn't just higher than him, it was far higher than him. If they really fought, he probably wouldn't be a match for the Star Maiden. Great. That's great. The Sea-Wolf Path Master stood up and said excitedly, Star Maiden, are you sure you want to join the Sea-Wolf Pirates? It's not too late for you to change your mind. If you really join us, it'll be difficult for you to change your mind. The Star Maiden blinked her eyes and said, Of course I'm sure. The Sea-Wolf Path Master was overjoyed. Great. Now I will confer you as. As he spoke, he noticed Suyu, who hadn't been tested yet. He furrowed his brows slightly because he didn't think Suyu could pass the test. Suyu wasn't famous among the half-step path masters, and his body was exhausted, which meant he was half a cripple. What was the point of such a person passing the test? Could he take on the responsibility of a Helm Master? It would be difficult, wouldn't it? However, he couldn't refuse in front of so many people. So he said, the last one is Su Rushu. Suyu nodded and stepped into the stone tablet. The Poison Mathematician smiled. He wasn't the last one, as Suyu was still the last one. The stone sword snorted. What a waste of time. The Star Maiden, who was next to him, was shaking her long white legs in boredom as she waited for the result. In everyone's opinion, the waiting time would not be too long. At most, it would be less than the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. Suyu bore their words in mind, then entered the vortex expressionlessly. There was an independent space inside, and it was a dusky world. Here comes another one. An impatient sigh entered his ears. He glanced sideways and saw a young man who bore resemblance to the Sea-Wolf Dowlord. He was about 100 years old. He could be considered a young Sea-Wolf Dowlord. His cultivation base had barely reached the half-step Dowlord realm, but he had yet to attain the Dao transformation realm. Make your move. The previous 4 all succeeded in challenging me within 10 breaths of time. Let's see how you fare. The afterimage said. The natural laws within his body surged and shot out with chi law sounds. So you didn't even look at it. With a wave of his space law, the law was shattered and the remnant shadow was destroyed. Not more than a breath's time had passed. The afterimage shattered, and the surroundings turned blood red. The one who appeared was Sea-Wolf Dowlord, who had more than half of his body transformed into Dao. Judging from his age, he should be close to 200 years old. Oh, another one. All right, let's see what you can do. The other party sneered and sent a palm strike over. The palm strike contained traces of the Daolord's intent, and it was extremely intimidating. Suyu's expression didn't change. He raised a finger and touched the other party lightly. The 200-year-old Sea-Wolf Dowlord turned into dust and drifted away. Next, the surroundings changed once again, and they appeared on the ruined battlefield. The Sea-Wolf Dowlord, who was draped in a red cloak and surrounded by blood energy, appeared. He must have been 300 years old when his body had completely transformed into Dao. You're quite powerful. You're so young, yet you managed to come this far. It's enough to show that your talent is greater than mine in the past, the cloaked Sea-Wolf Dowlord praised. Poison Oracle and the Sky's Snow Swordsman managed to resist me for half an incense stick's worth of time. Let's see how long you can last. He clenched his right fist and struck out. The peerless aura of a Dowlord was fierce and destructive. Ordinary half-step Dowlords had already fled in panic under the deterrence of the Dao body. They didn't dare to resist it at all. Even Poison Oracle and the Sky Snow Swordsman had to exert their full strength to resist it. Only Suyu's expression was calm as usual. He still extended a finger and pointed it at the Sea Wolf Dowlord. Beep! The cloaked Sea Wolf Dowlord cried out in alarm as he was crushed into pieces. In front of the heavenly dragon Dow body, the body of a Dowlord was just like a piece of paper. Next, the scene changed abruptly, and Suyu appeared in a lightning pool. He saw a 500-year-old Sea Wolf Dowlord in the lightning pool, tempering his soul with thunderbolts. More than half of his soul had been transformed into Dao. Was this a competition of Dao souls? Not bad. You're so young, yet you could defeat me from 500 years ago? The Sea Wolf Dowlord was full of praise. If you can continue to grow, you will have a great chance of becoming a Dowlord. However, you have to pass through me first. The Sea Wolf Dowlord jumped out of the lightning pool. He pointed a finger at the space between his eyebrows, and an invisible soul energy swept over like a tide. If Suyu didn't resist it, he would faint on the spot. Soul. Suyu's eyes widened as he released his Dao soul. Boom! The Sea Wolf Daelord's soul wave was directly penetrated. The Sea Wolf Daelord's body shook, and his eyes were full of shock. Not only your body, but your soul has also been transformed into Dao. He was extremely surprised and said, Your strength is second only to the Star Lady. Congratulations, you have defeated my fourth remnant shadow. After saying that, he disappeared on his own accord. The next moment, heaven and earth were overturned, and he appeared on a boundless sea. The 1,000-year-old Sea Wolf Dowlord was capturing strange creatures in the sea to transform his soul. His soul had been completely transformed into Dao. Sensing Suyu's arrival, he stood up in surprise. You've come to the 5th stage? You're quite powerful for your age. Suyu said calmly, Don't say any unnecessary words. Let's begin. Shaking his head slightly, the Sea Wolf Dowlord said, Your soul is only half transformed, and you're far from being a match for me. After saying that, his eyes opened abruptly, and a powerful soul spear shot toward Suyu. Suyu's face was calm, and a crack appeared between his eyebrows, like a reincarnated eye. All of a sudden, the soul spear was devoured. What secret technique is this? The Sea Wolf Dowlord was shocked. A spear formed by a Dao soul could destroy any soul body below the level of a Pathmaster. However, Suyu devoured it directly? He didn't know that this was the soul space of the Heaven Sun gazing at air technique, which could even suppress the soul of a Pathmaster. What could a mere spear formed by a Dao soul do? His eyes flickered, and he bowed deeply to Suyu. You've won. After you go out, please tell me your true strength. I can't miss a talent like you. Suyu nodded indifferently and said calmly, Next. Chapter 2200. The next person to appear was Dowlord Sea Wolf, who had cultivated for 1,500 years. At this moment, he had successfully comprehended part of the domain. It's truly incredible that you were able to reach this stage at your age. Dao Master Sea Wolf was shocked. He had only cultivated for a little over 100 years, yet he was able to surpass Dowlord Sea Wolf, who had cultivated for over 1,000 years. His potential was evident. Regardless of whether you can resist my domain or not, you can still be proud of yourself. Sea Wolf Dao Master praised. Get ready. Illusions appeared behind him, and images of a gigantic sea wolf rampaging through the star field and devouring many civilizations appeared. That was his domain, the Sea Wolf domain. Heavenly Dragon Taoist body. Suyu shouted in a low voice and turned into a half-dragon that was shining with golden light. With a sweep of his dragon tail, the Sea Wolf domain was shattered with a smack. His Heavenly Dragon Dao body was only at initial success, and he had only comprehended half of Sea Wolf Dao Master's domain. It was not difficult to shatter it. Unbelievable! Sea Wolf Dao Master's eyes widened. That Astral Maiden is nothing more than this. The Star Maiden also defeated him. However, compared to Suyu, the Star Maiden didn't just use all her power, she also spent a long time on it. How could he be like Suyu, who could easily defeat him? Next, Suyu said indifferently, You still want to continue? Dowlord Sea Wolf was shocked. However, This space had been set up long ago. As long as Suyu didn't take the initiative to leave, the afterimages of the Sea Wolf Path Master of different ages would appear continuously. The afterimage in front of him quickly dissipated and was replaced by a slightly weathered middle-aged man who looked very similar to the current Sea Wolf Dowlord. He was Sea Wolf Dowlord who had reached the domain realm of laws. To a certain extent, it was the limit of the half-step Dowlord realm, and he could break through into the Dowlord realm at any moment if he wanted to. The afterimage that appeared was silently cultivating. When he suddenly saw Suyu, he couldn't help but be surprised. Another one, the Star Maiden, came not long ago and was defeated by him. Unexpectedly, another one came, and he didn't look much older than the Star Lady. Where are you from? Can you tell me your background? Sea Wolf Dow Master, who had cultivated for more than 2,000 years, asked with a complicated expression. 100 years of cultivation for others was equivalent to nearly 2,000 years of cultivation for him. It could really be said that comparing oneself to others was infuriating. You're just an afterimage, so what's the point of knowing so much? Suyu said calmly. He maintained his half-dragon body and took the initiative to attack. Courageous! Sea Wolf Dowlord's eyes lit up, and he laughed heartily as he activated the complete Sea Wolf domain. A gigantic wolf that was as tall as the sky suddenly rushed over with a cold glint in its eyes. Suyu wasn't afraid at all. His opponent hadn't reached the level of a Pathmaster yet, so the might of his domain was limited. Dao, the heavenly dragon's body of the way of the heavenly dragon, was not afraid of his opponent's domain at all. His dragon claws pierced through the domain. Although he was sent flying by the domain, he was not seriously injured. Moreover, it was Suyu's first time using the heavenly dragon's Taoist body, so he was a little unfamiliar with it. However, in the following battles, he became more and more familiar with it and gradually gained the upper hand. Dragon, Dowlord C to be he too? Su Wolf Dao, Su Dragon. After a long time, his realm, after he was of C of Dowlord C, had suffered years. However, he had won. He had Dowlord. Dowlord defeated by Dao Star God Realm. Defeated. Dragon Star. Dowlord had time. He, Star God defeated. This time, he had been defeated by Suyu, and he had suffered a devastating blow. There were indeed geniuses in this world that ordinary people couldn't understand. You won. Dowlord Sea Wolf looked at Suyu. After a moment of silence, he said, "Let me give you a piece of advice. Stop." Suyu didn't speak. He just listened. The current me may still admire you, but in the future, my original self may not be able to tolerate you. People had different beliefs at different times in their lives. 2,000 years ago, Dowlord Sea Wolf might have been tolerant of juniors who had overtaken him. However, the current Dowlord Sea Wolf wouldn't tolerate anyone threatening his position. Therefore, it was best for Suyu to stop here. Thank you for reminding me, Suyu said. He didn't intend to continue the challenge. The next one to appear would be Dowlord Sea Wolf. In his current state, Suyu was no match for him, unless his body recovered. Powerful vitality surged out of his body to heal his injuries. Then, he left this space without hesitation. Little did he know, the outside world was in chaos. He thought Suyu wouldn't be able to last more than 30 minutes. However, he didn't show up for 2 hours. The Sword in the Stone, who was already impatient, said, Dowlord Sea Wolf, he probably died in there. I don't think we need to wait for a nobody like him. He didn't hide his contempt for Suyu at all. He called Suyu a nobody. The Sky Snow Swordsman and the Poisonous Mathematician frowned slightly. They were the ones who knew Suyu better than anyone else here. Given Suyu's profound martial arts theories, they wondered whether Suyu could persist until now. However, when they looked at the Star Maiden, they rejected such a ridiculous idea. Even the Star Maiden could only persist for 2.5 hours. Could Suyu surpass her? It was very likely that he would die in there. The Star Lady's nonchalant face suddenly showed a hint of curiosity. She had witnessed the strength of the 2,000-year-old Dowlord Sea Wolf. To be honest, almost no one could defeat him. Could Suyu contend with him for so long? It was more likely that he would die in there, right? Only Tao Lord Seawolf knew clearly that no one could die in that space. The residual shadow he left behind could only seriously injure someone. However, it was entirely possible that Suyu was seriously injured and unconscious. He also didn't think that Suyu could persist for so long. It's almost time. I'll bring him back personally. Tao Lord Seawolf felt that he was being extra cautious by waiting for 2 hours. He was about to open the stone tablet. Suddenly, the light distorted, and Suyu walked out of it, unscathed. The stone sword snorted softly. Did you sleep soundly in there? There was a hint of blame in his words. Suyu looked at him and felt that this was strange. Since when did he sleep in this place? The sky snow swordsman and the poisonous mathematician looked at him comfortingly and told him not to be discouraged. Tao Lord Seawolf was slightly startled. He looked at Suyu with disappointment. He didn't expect Suyu to be unconscious in there. Tao Lord Seawolf had many doubts about Suyu's ability to survive the previous siege. It's good that you're back. Of course, Tao Lord Seawolf didn't show any unusual expression on his face. He said, "Don't be discouraged. If you work hard in the future, you might be able to catch up with them." Do you understand? Catch up with them? Suyu suddenly understood why everyone was behaving strangely. It was probably because he had stayed in there for too long that they had misunderstood him. He didn't argue with them, but said, "I will continue to work hard." Chapter 2201. Tao Lord Seawolf nodded lightly. "Yes, you are worth teaching." He looked at Suyu, then at the stone sword and the Star Maiden. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The disparity between two people was really great. The stone sword and the Star Maiden, who were both youngsters of the same generation, were far superior to Suyu. The former two would surely become pathmasters in the future, while Suyu's chances were slim. Since the martial strength assessment is complete, I'll give you the corresponding positions according to your martial strength. Seawolf Dowlord looked at Star Maiden and the sword in the stone with a gratified expression. Using force to determine one's position was the fairest method. He believed that no one would object to this. The Sky Snow swordsman and poison mathematician could only feel envy. They had originally thought that they would most likely be given the position of vice leader when they joined the Sea Wolves pirates. Unexpectedly, the sword and the stone and the Star Lady, the favored ones, came one after another. They could only stay at the back and assumed the position of branch leader. Star Maiden's expression was calm, but the sword and the stone had a hint of arrogance on its face. DD. At this moment, a series of numbers appeared on the stone tablet. The Seawolf Pathmaster didn't even look at Suyu, as he had already assumed that Suyu's martial prowess was quite low. He then said, "I have 2 vacant deputy leaders, and one of them will be taken by the Star Maiden." He looked at Star Maiden and frowned slightly. Star Maiden wasn't listening to him. Instead, she was staring at the stone tablet without blinking. On such an important occasion, she was distracted by his affairs. Even though Sea Wolf Down Master admired her, he was still very displeased. He was about to say something when he suddenly realized that the sword and the stone, Sky Snow swordsman, poison mathematician, and the others were staring at the stone tablet with peculiar gazes. There was confusion, and shock. Dowlord Seawolf was slightly stunned. He looked at the stone tablet and muttered, 19,000? He suspected that he was seeing things and subconsciously looked at it again. After confirming that it was really 19,000, he couldn't help but be stunned. Even someone as famous as a Star Maiden only had 7,000. What was going on with 19,000? The space was set up by him, so he understood the meaning of numbers. He understood it the best. 19,000. That was close to the strength of a Dowlord. There were practically no half-step Dowlords in the territories ruled by the 7 terminal civilizations that possessed such terrifying martial prowess. Could Suyu, a half-crippled man who had overexerted himself, do it? That's impossible. His instincts told him that something must have gone wrong with the steel. What the hell? The sword and the stone shook his head. You can even cheat in this kind of test. His tone was filled with disappointment towards Sea Wolf Dowlord. After the heavenly snow swordsman and poisonous mathematician came back to their senses, they also felt that Suyu had most likely found a trick. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense to have such a high martial power. Only the Star Maiden looked at Suyu, lost in her thoughts. The Sea Wolf Pathmaster came back to his senses and looked deeply at Suyu. He furrowed his brows and asked, Su-Rushu, can you tell me how you did it? Hearing his questioning tone, Suyu asked in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, Then, may I ask, leader, apart from martial arts, did you set up any other shortcuts to pass this stage? Does he mean that Sea Wolf Dowlord doesn't even trust the things he set up? Master Sea Wolf's eyes darkened slightly. Of course not. Suyu stood there silently, not saying another word. Sea Wolf Dowlord knew what to do next. If he denied Suyu's power, it would be the same as denying himself. He probably couldn't bring himself to do this in front of everyone. After a moment of silence, Sea Wolf Pathmaster looked at Suyu with a profound look in his eyes and said, The second deputy leader, Su-Rushu. Thank you, leader, Suyu said as he cupped his fists. The people present all had different expressions on their faces. The heavenly snow swordsman and poisonous mathematician were both envious and sighing. Suyu was the only one who could become a deputy leader by cheating. After a moment of confusion, the stone sword revealed deep anger. How could a person whom he disdained to look at directly replace him as the deputy leader? The funniest thing was that Sea Wolf Pathmaster approved of Suyu's obviously unreasonable martial power. Only the Star Maiden gracefully curtsied to Suyu. Deputy Leader Su, please take care of me in the future. Suyu replied calmly, No problem. Hearing his impolite tone, everyone cursed him inwardly. Even the Star Maiden's forehead couldn't help but twitch. Isn't this Su-Rushu too arrogant? With her strength, who else could take care of her except the Pathmaster? The Sea Wolf Pathmaster said expressionlessly, The stone sword will be the first fleet's helm master. The heavenly snow swordsman will be the second fleet's helm master, and poisonous mathematician will be the third fleet's helm master. The others didn't mind it, but the stone sword clenched his fists secretly. His heart was full of resentment. Fine, you can go and have a rest. Someone will arrange rooms for you. When the recruitment is over, I will publicly award you the identity seal, the Sea Wolf Pathmaster said. After everyone left, his eyes flickered, and he immediately checked the stone tablet to find traces of Suyu's cheating. Suyu and the others went to their own cabins under the arrangement of the guide. Suyu's cabin was quite ordinary, and it didn't seem like the residence of a deputy leader at all. Deputy Leader Su, if you have any instructions, you can tell me at any time. The guide was a pretty woman who wore a 5-crown crown. She had a charming look on her face. She took out the communication jade charm and handed it to Suyu before leaving the cabin with a smile. Then she came to the front of the cabin of the Sea Wolf Pathmaster and bowed in front of the door. Leader, according to your instructions, Su-Rushu has been settled in an ordinary cabin. Only people below the level of Helm Master could live in ordinary cabins. Helm Masters usually lived in high-class cabins. As for the deputy leaders, they should live in the best cabins. The Sea Wolf Pathmaster's intention was obvious by arranging a cabin for Suyu that wasn't even comparable to a Helm Master's. Did he say anything? The Sea Wolf Pathmaster asked thoughtfully as he fumbled with the stone tablet in the room. The pretty woman shook her head slightly and said regretfully, No. The Sea Wolf Pathmaster's intention was quite simple. He hoped that Suyu would back off. It would be better if Suyu became indignant because of the poor treatment and made a fuss. Then, he would have an honorable reason to expel Suyu. It was a pity that Suyu didn't have such an excuse. After a pause, the pretty woman said, Leader, if you want to expel Suyu, you just need to say something, and he won't dare to stay, right? The Sea Wolf Pathmaster said calmly, Now is the time for recruitment. If I expel a deputy leader for no reason, who do you think will dare to work for me? Upon hearing this, the pretty woman suddenly understood. If the Sea Wolf Pathmaster got the bad reputation of not valuing talents and expelling people at will, any ambitious person would choose to work for the other 9 pirate leaders instead of him. For the next few days, treat him as you should. Don't give others a reason to talk about you. I hope he knows his place and leaves on his own accord. Don't occupy the position of the stone sword for nothing, the Sea Wolf Pathmaster said. The pretty woman sighed silently. If he were Suyu, he would have left long ago. Why should he stay here and wait for others to decide? Since he had something to do during the day, he could only make up for it at 5 o'clock the next day. At 8 o'clock in the morning, he could make up for it at noon, depending on the situation, and then at 6 o'clock in the evening. Chapter 2202. After settling down, Suyu immediately started to comprehend the realm, not letting go of any opportunity to improve himself. Several days later, the voices of Tian Shui swordsman and poison mathematician could be heard from outside the cabin. Deputy Leader Su, we have come to congratulate you. Suyu stopped cultivating and opened the door to let them in. Deputy Leader Su, you have become a deputy leader at such a young age. You have a bright future ahead of you. Poison mathematician said with a smile as he handed over a gift. Tian Shui swordsman handed over a knife. This is a divine weapon that I have made myself. I hope it can catch your eye. You're too kind. Suyu accepted it generously. The two gifts were of no use to Suyu, but the meaning behind them was important. Ever since he had become a deputy leader, no one had come to visit him. Tian Shui swordsman and poison mathematician were the only ones. Haha, I hope Deputy Leader Su can guide us in the future. Poison mathematician said with a smile. Suyu smiled without saying anything. He could see the look in Sea Wolf Pathmaster's eyes. He was very reluctant to give up the position of deputy leader. It was hard to say whether he would be able to use him in the future. After setting up a table of wine, Suyu took out wine that contained absolute beginning energy and served them. After drinking it, the two of them turned pale with fright. Absolute beginning energy? That's the Pathmaster's favorite thing. Tian Shui swordsman was surprised. Poison mathematician was also shocked. Deputy Leader Su, you really hide your strength well. Absolute beginning energy is the best thing for the Pathmaster to use to nurture the Pathmaster's power. It's hard to get, but you have a whole pot here? Oh, does absolute beginning energy have such an effect? It makes sense. The desolate power of the divine warriors of heaven and earth couldn't be transformed from spiritual energy. Not to mention the Pathmaster's power. Absolute beginning energy was the source of all things, and it could be transformed into anything. It wasn't strange for a Pathmaster to transform it into absolute beginning energy. Deputy Leader Su, it's a waste to give us this absolute beginning energy. Why don't you offer it to Sea Wolf Pathmaster? Maybe he'll look up to you. Poison mathematician kindly reminded him. Tian Shui swordsman nodded in agreement and said hesitantly, in my opinion, Sea Wolf Pathmaster seems to have some complaints about you. Why don't you take the initiative to improve your relationship? They could still see that Suyu wasn't in an important position. Hearing the kindness of the two, Suyu smiled. I have been cultivating for so long, and I have relied on a rebellious will to get to where I am today. If I were to lower my head to others for the sake of my future, it would be difficult for me to advance my path. The Sky Snow swordsman and poison calculator exchanged glances and sighed. After cultivating to the half-step Dowlord realm, who wouldn't have their own defiance intent. However, they could turn the tide for a while. Going against the world was extremely difficult. It was no wonder that Suyu was able to achieve so much, even though he was at such an important juncture. After a moment of silence, the Sky Snow Bladesman let out a sigh and said, Vice Leader Su, I'll be honest with you. Actually, a day ago, Sea Wolf Pathmaster invited us to hold an appointment ceremony. Both Poisonous Diviner and I received the seal of a branch leader. Star Maiden and the Sword in the Stone are also participating. Suyu is the only one who seemed to have been forgotten. The dignified deputy leader candidate was actually not notified. Poison Calculator also sighed. Although the Sword in the Stone is holding the seal of a branch leader, as far as I know, he is now living in the deputy leader's cabin, which should have belonged to you. In such a stark contrast, the grievances Suyu had suffered were evident. Suyu's face was calm and unruffled. Sea Wolf Pathmaster's intention of driving him away was quite obvious. He was just short of saying it himself. Should he withdraw from the Sea Wolf's pirates now? Wouldn't that be exactly what Sea Wolf Pathmaster wanted? Moreover, among all the pirates, only Sea Wolf Pathmaster lacked the position of deputy leader. Even if the other pirates joined them, it would be difficult for them to get a high position. Vice Leader Sue, you must be careful in the future. Don't let others get hold of your weakness, the Sky Snowbladesman said. If Suyu really did get hold of his weakness, he would be demoted at the very least, and he might even be erased by Sea Wolf Pathmaster. Thank you for your heartfelt words. I'll keep them in mind, Suyu said. I know what I should do next. The reason why he was in such a predicament was that Sea Wolf Pathmaster had doubts about Suyu's strength. If he could show his strength that could crush the sword in the stone and the Star Lady, the difficulty would be easily solved. As long as he could gain Sea Wolf Pathmaster's trust, he could smoothly complete his undercover plan and find out the whereabouts of the Sinful Lady Palace. In the following days, Suyu didn't take the initiative to meet Sea Wolf Pathmaster to ask for the seal. Instead, he stayed at home and cultivated quietly to improve his strength. He was able to keep his composure, but the sword in the stone was getting more and more restless. As time went by, his status as the captain of the First Fleet was getting more and more stable. If he didn't find a way, he would really take over the Helm Master's position. These days, he had been trying to find trouble with Suyu and take the opportunity to drive Suyu away by creating trouble. With Sea Wolf Pathmaster's help, this method was almost guaranteed to succeed. However, Suyu didn't show up, so he couldn't do anything to him even if he wanted to. In desperation, he could only seek an audience with Sea Wolf Pathmaster and state his purpose. Leader, please uphold justice for me. How could a person who cheated occupy the position that belonged to him? Sea Wolf Pathmaster frowned slightly. He had deliberately created so many injustices, but Suyu was still tolerating it. After a moment of silence, Sea Wolf Pathmaster said slowly, Fine, there is one thing I want to announce. I should be able to use this opportunity to kick him away smoothly. The sword in the stone's heart tightened. For several days, Sea Wolf Pathmaster had been discussing something with the other 9 great pirates. The discussion had lasted for a whole day. They had just finished the discussion yesterday. Could the matter he mentioned be related to this? However, he was happy to seek justice for Suyu. Soon, Suyu, who was deep in cultivation, received a summons. After stopping his cultivation, Suyu's eyes lit up as he calmly went to the cabin. In the cabin, the Star Lady, the sword in the stone, the Sky Snow Swordsman, and the poisonous mathematician gathered, as well as many recently recruited Hellmasters. Perhaps Suyu was the last to be notified, but when he arrived, everyone except Sea Wolf Pathmaster was already there. Is he the deputy leader, Su Rushu? To be precise, he's the deputy leader, right? Everyone else has a stamp except for him. I heard he cheated to get in, so he wasn't favored by the leader. Really? Why does he have to pretend to be strong at his own cost? He's embarrassing himself. As soon as he entered the cabin, he was the center of attention and the sound of people talking could be heard. Except for the Sky Snow Swordsman and the poisonous mathematician, who greeted him from afar, the rest of the people looked at him strangely. Suyu was standing in a corner with a calm face. Although he was being criticized, his heart was as calm as still water. Swish! The sound of a sleeve tearing through the air could be heard, and Sea Wolf Pathmaster appeared on the highest seat like a phantom. He looked solemn as he glanced at everyone and said, Since everyone is here, I will announce it directly. These days, the 10 great pirates have been discussing how to take revenge on the 7 Absolute Alliance, Sea Wolf Pathmaster said. After discussion, we have decided to choose one of the families to carry out a destructive revenge. The overall strength of the Pirate Alliance was only equivalent to that of a family. If they wanted to take revenge, they could only choose one family. In the past, the second Peerless family caused us the most casualties. Therefore, we plan to take revenge on the second Peerless family. Sea Wolf Pathmaster said. Everyone was excited. This meant that there would soon be a large-scale operation. This revenge will be called decapitation. Sea Wolf Pathmaster said in a low voice, There are 2 main targets for revenge. First, eliminate the family master of the second Peerless family, the Pajuan Emperor. Second, capture the young master of the second Peerless family, the Greedy Wolf King. If they could really eliminate the current family master and heir of the second Peerless family, The revenge of the Pirate Alliance would be enough to shock the entire seven-star civilization. The 10 pirate leaders will deal with the Pajuan Emperor, while the deputy leaders will deal with the greedy Wolf King. This was within everyone's expectations. The Stone Sword paused and said, "Leader, how many pirate groups are willing to send the deputy leaders?" Seawolf Pathmaster said with a resolute look, "The other pirates are afraid and unwilling to send people to capture the greedy Wolf King. But I think the Sea Wolves pirates should be brave enough to take responsibility, so I accepted the task." What? Hearing this, all the hosts revealed a meaningful look. How could the greedy Wolf King be captured so easily? Every young master of the 7 peerless families was not to be trifled with. They were usually wise and powerful. The greedy Wolf King was one of the best. It was rumored that his strength could be ranked in the top 7. Unless it was a Dao Lord or a few extraordinary geniuses at the half-step Dao Lord realm, it was utterly impossible to capture the greedy Wolf King. Moreover, it was impossible for the greedy Wolf King to be without the protection of the Pathmaster. Why were the other pirates unwilling to send people? Because they knew that it was suicide. It was impossible to complete the task with just the deputy leaders. Seawolf Pathmaster had accepted the task. Therefore, whoever he sent now would be sent to their deaths. Seawolf Pathmaster did not seem to see the strange looks on everyone's faces. He said righteously, "With a blood feud here, how can we be afraid? We, the Sea Wolves pirates, will do what other pirates are unwilling to do." His words were sonorous and powerful, but everyone was sneering inwardly. He said it as if he was going to hunt the Pajuan Emperor alone. In fact, he still had to choose someone to die. He really knew how to be generous with others' money. After a night of careful consideration, I have decided to send Deputy Leader Sue of the Sea Wolf Pirates to carry out the task. Seawolf Pathmaster finally revealed his true purpose, sending Su Yu to die. This was within everyone's expectations. Deputy Leader Su's strength has reached 19,000, so he is the most suitable candidate. This task must be done by him. Seawolf Pathmaster looked at Su Yu with an encouraging look. Hearing this, many people had gloating looks on their faces. Is this retribution? Do you think it's so easy to become the deputy leader by cheating? Now you should know what regret is, right? Chapter 2203. Su Yu's expression was calm. He had no choice but to accept this mission. Rather than being forced into a mission, it was better to take the initiative and accept it. However, Su Yu had to take on the Sea Wolf Pathmaster's intention to kill him. If there comes a day when his body recovers, I will cut him down with my sword. Since he could disregard Su Yu's life, he could not blame Su Yu for being merciless in the future. Deputy Leader Su didn't disappoint me. All right. The Sea Wolf's Pathmaster clapped his hands and laughed. It seemed like he really admired Su Yu. He then took out a seal and threw it at Su Yu. This is your Vice Leader's seal. You can use it to mobilize some of the Sea Wolves pirate connections in the second peerless family. If the 7 Absolutes aristocratic families could arrange spies among the pirates, why couldn't the pirates arrange spies among the 7 Absolute civilizations? I will go now, Su Yu said calmly, holding the seal in his hand. Seawolf Dowlord nodded slightly. I wish you success. As he spoke, he flicked out a strand of his Daelord's energy and said, Use it well. Seawolf Dowlord had already done his best by doing this. If he were to unfortunately die in the second peerless clan, it would have nothing to do with him, right? Thank you very much. Su Yu turned around and stepped out of the cabin. The corners of the Sea Wolf Pathmaster's mouth curled into a happy smile as he watched him leave. He could finally get rid of Su Yu. The sword in the stone revealed a gratified smile. He believed that Su Yu's death would come soon. Then he could rightfully become the new deputy leader. Su Yu left the pirates' main ship, boarded a small pirate ship, and headed for the second unique civilization alone. The power of the Daelord in his body was almost depleted. Now, the wisp of Daelord's power that Daelord Sea Wolf had given him had finally returned. As long as he didn't use Morning Dusk, he should be able to use it to complete the mission. However, Su Yu didn't think that the Sea Wolf Pathmaster would be so kind. He wished for nothing more than for me to die outside. So why would he bestow me with a strand of Daelord energy? A bright light flashed. When the small boat left the pirate nest of the six-star civilization, Suyu went to a secluded place and inspected the condition of his body. Looking into his body, he found that everything was fine. However, since Suyu had become suspicious, he had to get to the bottom of it. He used the destiny law to scan his body, and sure enough, he found a problem. He saw a faintly discernible line. One end was connected to him, and the other end was connected to the pirate's lair. There really was something wrong with that strand of Daelord's power. He examined it carefully and ascertained that the thread was harmless. However, once Suyu died, the thread would break off on its own and be sensed by the Sea Wolf Path Master. If I die outside, you must be looking forward to it, right? Suyu's eyes flickered with a cold light. Unfortunately, he wouldn't get what he wanted. 2 months later, a pirate ship stopped in the sky above the second peerless family. The second peerless family was a boundless desert. Amidst the biting cold astral winds, yellow sand filled the sky, and the sun could not be seen year-round. Many jade-green oases dotted the yellow sand like emeralds. The oasis at the center was incomparably large. That was where the second most exceptional family's king manor was located. There were also 9 small oases around the mansion, like 9 stars surrounding the moon, surrounding the mansion in the center. With a thought, Suyu flew to one of the 9 small oases. It was small only when viewed from afar. Only when he was there could he feel the vastness of the small oasis. It was as big as a 6-star civilization. He did not immediately go to find the greedy Wolf King, but instead came here. His purpose was to gather information. Looking around, Suyu walked and stopped in the civilization. Finally, he came to an inconspicuous coffin shop in a mortal city. Night was approaching. A hunchbacked old man with a goatee was sitting in front of a dim oil lamp, carving a coffin. His name was Wang San, a well-known carpenter in Wind Cloud City. He was best at making coffins. The coffins he made were not only beautiful, but also strong and durable. In Wind Cloud City and the nearby towns, whenever there was a white funeral, they would ask him for custom-made coffins. At that moment, the half-closed door of the shop slowly opened. A young man wearing a bamboo hat stood outside the shop with his hands clasped behind his back. Wang Xin glanced sideways and said calmly, "It's closed. Come back tomorrow." The young man said calmly, "After doing business with the dead during the day, it's time to do business with the living at night. Why is it closed?" The old man's eyes flashed, and he said expressionlessly, "Young man, I don't quite understand what you mean." "No, you understand." The young man took out a skull-shaped seal. On the seal, the words Su Rushu were engraved. Seeing the seal, Wang San's expression changed. He stood up hurriedly and bowed. Subordinate Wang San greets deputy leader. He was a member of the Sea Wolves pirates, hidden in the second peerless family. His status was not low, second only to the Hellmaster. He was in charge of gathering information in the second peerless family. Suyu had made the right decision to come to him. Suyu took off his bamboo hat and walked in. Wang San immediately closed the door, secretly surprised. How did he become the deputy leader at such a young age? "Deputy leader, what orders do you have for me?" Wang San said, hunching his body. Suyu looked around and set up a space enchantment, isolating all probing from the outside world. "I have a question for you." "Oh, greedy Wolf King." Wang San was slightly surprised. "I wonder what deputy leader wants to know about him." "Everything." "Deputy leader, please wait a moment." Wang San took out a coffin nail from his sleeve. At first glance, there was nothing special about the nail, but a closer look would reveal that the nail was engraved with small words. It was invisible to the naked eye. Only those who had trained their eyesight or had a very high level of cultivation could see it clearly. Suyu used his transparent eye to discover that there was something strange about the nail. "Profound skills," Suyu exclaimed. The difficulty of engraving words that were difficult to see with the naked eye was obvious. Wang San laughed. "Deputy leader, you are too kind. In our line of work, we naturally have to be very careful. Engraving information on the nail is also a last resort." As he spoke, he searched carefully. Soon after, He found 3 nails and handed them to Suyu. This is all the information about the greedy Wolf King. Deputy Leader, please take a look. Suyu looked carefully. There were tens of thousands of words on the 3 nails, introducing the greedy Wolf King's life in detail. After a cup of tea, Suyu finally finished reading. His eyes were filled with deep confusion. The greedy Wolf King was cunning, wise, and calm. Although he was still a young master, he had already participated in the governance of the second peerless family. His performance was outstanding. As the master of the family, the Pajuan Emperor regarded him as one of the brains behind the scenes. Over the years, several of his brothers and sisters had been tortured by the greedy Wolf King, both openly and secretly. A light punishment would be the destruction of their cultivation, and a heavy punishment would be expulsion from the family. Even an older brother, who was as capable as the greedy Wolf King, had unexpectedly disappeared many years ago. Judging from his character, he was quite difficult to deal with. His martial skills were also quite extraordinary. Among the half-path masters of the 7 peerless families, he was ranked second. Even in the boundless void ruled by the 7 peerless families, he could still be ranked among the top 10. If an ordinary half-path master were to fight him, only death would await him. Suyu was about to face a peer with an extremely strong temperament and martial skills. It would be extremely difficult to capture him alive. Chapter 2204. Suyu had never been afraid of anyone when it came to intelligence and strength. The only thing he found difficult to grasp was that there was a short piece of information on the steel nail that he could not ignore. According to the information, the greedy Wolf King was a very lucky person. How lucky was he? When he was 3 years old, a meteorite had struck him and a top-grade defensive immortal artifact had fallen from it. When he was 6 years old, he had accidentally dug out a 3-million-year-old bumpkin from the ground while playing in the courtyard of the mansion. When he was 9 years old, a passing beggar had stuffed him a handwritten diary of a pathmaster's lifetime cultivation. When he was 10 years old, he had broken through to level 9 of the martial path in one day without any bottlenecks. When he was 12 years old, he had been kidnapped by 2 half-path masters. Coincidentally, there were path masters fighting in the sky, and the aftermath of the battle had killed the 2 path masters. He had escaped unscathed. When he was 14 years old, after reading all the stories, so you could only describe them as unbelievable. There were all sorts of things that didn't make sense and were filled with evilness. He had experienced dozens of kidnappings in his life, but his enemies had always failed for various inexplicable reasons. No one had ever succeeded. The most unbelievable thing was that there had been a middle-sized pathmaster who had forced him into a corner and was about to attack him. That pathmaster had suddenly gone berserk, and his mind was in chaos. It was as if a boundless destiny had enveloped him, protecting his safety. Knowing this, even though Suyu was very confident, he could not help but worry. Would something similar happen when he kidnapped him? Fortunately, I knew the information in advance, Suyu said to himself. If he had attacked without knowing the situation, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Apart from the greedy Wolf King himself, he had a pathmaster named Sky Crane by his side. He was not the strongest in the second peerless family, but his movement techniques were definitely the fastest. Even a master of the family, Pajuan, could not keep up with his speed. Rumor had it that his movement techniques were close to the Heavenly Legacy battleship. Even if he could capture the greedy Wolf King alive, it would be difficult to escape from him. How troublesome! Suyu frowned and pondered for a day and a night. The next morning, his brows gradually relaxed. I hope the plan works. Suyu got up and bid farewell. A month later, he arrived at the central oasis of the mansion. As soon as they arrived, they saw that the central oasis where the prince's mansion was located was in a mess. There were patrolling guards everywhere, pedestrians were in a hurry, and martial artists were wantonly buying daily cultivation resources. An oppressive atmosphere deeply suppressed the central oasis. The Pirate Alliance is coming. The world is going to be in chaos. Detestable pirates. Not only did they not kill the snake, they were bitten instead. Moreover, the 7 Absolute Alliance also had a part in this. Why did they only rob us? When Suyu heard it, he realized that the 10 great pirates had finally made their move. Since the news had spread like wildfire, it was likely that they had already made their move. It's not much different from the estimated time, so you nodded lightly. The plan could begin now. This time, there was only one goal: to capture the greedy Wolf King, the second peerless family, the Wang Mansion. It was different from the vast and boundless Wang Fu of the number one peerless family. Because the oasis was limited, the Wang Fu's area was only 1% of the oasis, and it was surrounded by cities. In a second most powerful clan, this city was called Heavenly Star City. The most famous place in Heavenly Star City, apart from the Wang Fu, was the stargazing platform. According to legend, the ancestor of the second most powerful clan, the Big Dipper Emperor, had revolted at the stargazing platform. After the Channy Empire fell apart, he successfully occupied this vast land and became a strong man who ruled over a region. This place was the birthplace of the second most powerful clan, and it was famous far and wide. Usually, there were countless tourists coming and going. However, due to the recent attack of the pirates, no one came here. However, on this day, the entire Heavenly Star City was plastered with a letter of challenge from an unknown place. The content of the challenge letter was: Seawolf's pirate deputy leader, Su Rushu, challenges all the heaven rulers of the second most powerful clan. The challenge venue was the ancestral land of the second most powerful clan, the stargazing platform. The time of the challenge was 3 days later. This notice was all over the streets. Coupled with the fact that the pirates were shrouding them now, this challenge from a certain deputy leader of the pirates naturally spread. In just half a day, the whole city knew about it. Is that deputy leader's brain damaged? He actually came to the central oasis of the second most powerful clan and openly challenged the heaven rulers of the same generation. He can't really think that we will really have a fair fight with him, right? Maybe that's what he thinks. Ridiculous. Pirates are existences that everyone has the right to kill, and he still wants us to challenge him one-on-one? Everyone, let's go and destroy him. The news finally reached the prince's mansion. In a spacious training room, a young man with a silver horn on his head was training hard. His whole body was muscular, and his eyes were sharp and full of spirit. His gaze was as sharp as two blades, piercing straight into people's hearts. Young master, there's been news in the city recently. A middle-aged woman in a white robe, after a slight hesitation, said. The silver-horned young man was the young master of the second most powerful clan, the Greedy Wolf King, a legendary figure with heaven-defying luck. Speak. The Greedy Wolf King stopped and said lightly. Recently, a deputy leader of the pirates who calls himself Su Rushu appeared in the city. He publicly challenged the heaven rulers of the second most powerful clan on the stargazing platform, causing a great sensation. Hearing this, the Greedy Wolf King sneered. Do you believe it? Of course not. The woman said, unless he wants to die. The Greedy Wolf King said lightly, but I believe it. The woman was slightly startled and asked suspiciously, Young master, what do you mean? He will definitely challenge the strongest in the world on the stargazing platform. The woman pondered and said, he should know that no one will really challenge him fair and square, right? It is inevitable that he will be attacked by a group of people. The Greedy Wolf King, chuckled. So, he must have set up a trap to entertain the so-called heaven rulers. Hearing this, the woman thought deeply. Knowing that he would die, he still publicly challenged the heroes of the world? As long as he is not stupid, there must be another plot. His real goal, I guess, should be to lure me out. The Greedy Wolf King's eyes were filled with deep wisdom, as if he could see everything clearly, and said sarcastically, he really underestimated me. Such a simple trap. And he wants to lure me in? The woman thought deeply. The main target of the Seawolves pirates was naturally the young master and the young master. That Su Rushu who appeared strangely was most likely the young master. Young master is wise. Then, should we inform those heaven rulers not to be fooled? Chapter 22:05. Yes, young master. 3 days passed slowly as the heavens chosen of the second peerless family rubbed their fists. On this day, the stargazing platform, which was already cold and desolate, was unexpectedly filled with a sea of people. Many prodigies who were displeased with Su Rushu arrived at the foot of the mountain to accept the challenge. Among the crowd, there were two people whom Su Yu was quite familiar with. One of them was the younger sister of the beautiful woman in palace attire, Shu Xianduo. The other person was the former first peerless family foreign minister who had a strong desire to kill Su Yu, Foreign Minister Liu. On that day, the Broken Heaven Mountain was in chaos, and the prison was broken through by the remnants of the second most powerful clan, the Qian clan. Many prisoners were taken away by the second most powerful clan. Most of them held a grudge against the number one peerless family, so it was easy for them to join the second peerless family and become a force to oppose the number one peerless family. Guest Liu had been framed by Su Yu, and one could imagine how much resentment he had. Therefore, he joined the second peerless family without hesitation. There's really a reckless pirate who ran to the observatory to challenge everyone. Honored guest Liu asked. Shu Xianduo nodded her head. It is true. He calls himself Su Ruchu and seems to have joined the pirates recently. Guest Liu was slightly solemn. A newcomer can become the deputy leader of the pirates? I'm afraid this person isn't simple. He looked up at the observatory. The observatory was located at the foot of the mountain. If they wanted to go up, they had to go through an old mountain road. Because of the second exceptional family's ancestor, the mountain path was full of powerful pressure. It was impossible to fly, so they could only proceed on foot. Don't act rashly later. Guest Liu's old eyes narrowed slightly. Shu Xianduo nodded. All right. All of a sudden, a sinister-looking demonic figure appeared on the observatory. It was the body of a human demon. Under the control of Su Yu's soul, he stood at the edge of the mountain peak and lowered his head to look down. His eyes were filled with disdain. Is there really no one in the second peerless family? Only 2 or 3 kittens came. These words immediately triggered the anger of all the heaven's favorites. Shameless pirate, today I'll grind your bones to dust. A handsome young man dressed in white rushed forward with a sword in his hand. His white robes fluttered in the wind, accentuating his extraordinarily handsome figure. Wow, it's the white-clothed sword god. Senior brother god of swords, kill him with a single strike. White-robed sword god, the divine sword is invincible. I can finally see him in action. This trip is really worth it. Hearing the worship of the people behind him, the white-robed sword god's vanity was greatly satisfied. Pirate, take this sword that I recently comprehended. The sword god in white went up to the observatory and pulled out the 7-star sword on his back. He swung the sword and shouted, 7 stars illuminating the sun. With a sweep of the sword, 7 rays of resplendent starlight overshadowed the blazing sun in the sky and refracted extremely dazzling light. The strength of his swordsmanship drew cheers from the foot of the mountain. The white-robed sword god's swordsmanship has become much more exquisite. Just this sword strike alone should be able to make it into the top 200 of the half-stepped outlords. The evils brought upon themselves are the hardest to bear. That pirate will definitely die. As they discussed this, the devilish humanoid took out a black sword that emitted an even more evil aura. It was the sinful daughter's sinful sword. Sinkhole, the 8th form of the demonic sword art, was unleashed. Countless pitch-black sword shadows covered the sky like an impenetrable dark cloud, devouring the 7 stars, illuminating the sun's radiance. At the same time, the dark clouds suddenly descended. The white-robed sword god's white clothes were torn to shreds, and his body was cut into a bloody mess. In the blink of an eye, he was heavily injured. Trash! The humanoid laughed sinisterly. He charged forward and slapped the white-robed sword god's face. Slap! Dong! 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 Xiao Chun smacked the heavily injured white-robed sword god off the summit, causing him to tumble down. Everyone was enraged when they saw the unclothed and unconscious white-robed sword god. However, the humanoid demon added fuel to the fire. I told you that the second peerless family only has a bunch of weaklings. Is this all your so-called white-robed sword god is capable of? That's really disappointing. As soon as these words came out, it immediately caused indignation. Don't be so arrogant. I'll fight you. A fresh woman in apricot yellow robes quickly climbed up the mountain. She was beautiful and had a fresh and elegant temperament, like a pear flower. Dawnflower Lady. I can't believe she's here. Dawnflower Lady is known as the most talented person in the second peerless family's branch. Ha ha! The wicked will be punished by the heavens. I can't believe the Dawnflower Lady is here. Whoosh! The Dawnflower Lady ascended the star observation platform and stared at Suyu. Demon, surrender now. The humanoid demon laughed evilly. Little beauty, if you surrender, will you be able to kiss me? If so, I'm more than willing to surrender to you. Such shameless and vulgar words immediately drew the ire of the people at the foot of the mountain. The Dawnflower Lady's pretty face turned cold. Do you think you're worthy of touching me? Without another word, the Dawnflower Lady pointed with her thumb and middle finger, and a powerful chain of rules swept over. In terms of the power of the rules, few people of the same level could resist it. It was much more powerful than the white-robed sword god's sword. Hee. However, the humanoid demon grabbed the chain with his palm. The humanoid demon's body was a complete Taoist body. How could a mere chain of rules harm him? What? The Dawnflower Lady was shocked. Hee, are you surprised? The humanoid demon laughed evilly. He pulled the chain, and the Dawnflower Lady spun uncontrollably toward the humanoid demon. The Dawnflower Lady did not panic. Her eyes shone with a strange light. Just as she was about to reach the humanoid demon, she opened her mouth and spat out a steel needle, which was aimed at the humanoid demon's eye. Unexpectedly, the humanoid demon had a faint smile on his face, as if he had already expected this. He opened his mouth and accurately bit the silver needle that was flying towards him. Puff! As he spat the needle out, the humanoid demon struck the Dawnflower Lady's chest with his palm. A powerful force penetrated through her chest and exited through her back. Puff! In an instant, the Dawnflower Lady was like a wounded butterfly. Blood sprayed from her mouth as she flew backward from the mountain and landed on the ground. Thump! With a dull thud, the Dawnflower Lady fell to the ground. It was unknown whether she was dead or alive. Her outer garment had been shattered, and the only thing that remained was her bra, which was dripping with blood. You're quite beautiful, but unfortunately, you're just a pretty face, the humanoid demon said calmly. The people at the foot of the mountain were enraged. The Dawnflower Lady was the pearl of the second civilization. They had treated her like a treasure, but she had been destroyed by a pirate. Unforgivable. Brothers, let's attack together and kill him. Killing pirates is right and proper. It doesn't matter if it's fair or not. Charge! The Dawnflower Lady's death had completely ignited their anger. Thousands of prodigies roared and charged forward like a flood. The humanoid demon's disdain deepened, and a mocking smile appeared on his face. Since you don't want to keep your promise, then I won't be polite. Chapter 2206. Hundreds of magic arrays suddenly appeared, shooting out vines made of energy and entangling most of the people, making them unable to move. Only then did they realize that they had been tricked. It's a trap. Damn pirate. You went back on your word. Human demon laughed. Don't blame the enemy's cunning because of your incompetence. Besides, I did set up a trap, but you didn't intend to fulfill the challenge, did you? Same here. As he spoke, the human demon gripped the sinful sword and slowly walked down with a ferocious look on his face. Before my pirate army arrives, I'll first offer your heads as a sacrifice to the pirates who were killed by you. The human devil's face was cruel as he stood in front of the spell formation. Taking a deep breath, he activated the sinful sword. Void's End. Heaven and earth instantly darkened, and a sword image that looked like a black cloud came crashing down. The sword image contained a sharp killing intent that was enough to kill most of the people present. They were bound by the array and couldn't escape even if they wanted to. Boundless despair enveloped every one of them. No, I don't want to die. The few people who weren't bound by the array were shocked by the human demon's terror. Among them were guest Elder Lu and Shu Xianduo. Even a powerful half-step Tao, lord like early Dawnflower Maiden, had been knocked unconscious by a single attack. It would be difficult for them to win if they went up. The human demon was getting closer and was about to slaughter all the prodigies. At this moment, a young man in moon-white robes suddenly flew over from the horizon. He wore a bamboo hat and carried a crystal longsword on his back. Oomph! What kind of demonic creature dares to cause trouble in my sky, Star City? The young man used the law of space to ignore the suppression on the observatory and arrived above the human demon's head in a single step. The human demon's eyes narrowed. Law of space? Who are you? As he spoke, the human demon swung his sword at the young man's head. However, to everyone's surprise, the young man in moon-white robes didn't dodge and only stretched out an arm. At the same time, a layer of pitch-black dragon scales covered his arm and turned it into a dragon claw. He faced the Sin Sword head-on and made a grabbing motion, not fearing the terror of the Sin Sword at all. Let go. The youth's arm shook, and a huge force directly broke the human devil's arm. The sinful sword was now in Su Yu's hand. The horrifying scene made everyone excited. Who is he? He seems to be around our age? That's impossible, right? Could it be that our second absolute world has such a powerful genius? With his sinful sword snatched away, his expression became even more solemn. He shouted, "Kid, don't meddle in other people's business. I want to kill them. It has nothing to do with you." The youth in the moon-white robe snorted coldly. "Heaven and earth are clear. Righteousness never fades. As a member of the second peerless family, how could I sit idly by and do nothing when you kill innocent people? Demon, surrender now." The human demon clutched his broken arm and retreated to the observatory. He said, "You win. We will meet again." "Humph. You want to leave? Who gave you permission?" The youth in the white robe took a step forward and chased after him. A cold light gathered in his starry eyes. "Kid, I've already given up. What else do you want? Do you really want to fight to the death with me? Fight to the death? You probably don't deserve it." The youth in the white robe walked forward slowly. The human demon's face was ferocious. "You asked for it." His huge demonic palm slapped toward him. The young man in the white robe merely extended a finger and lightly tapped the center of his palm. Puff! A shocking scene unfolded. The human demon's incomparably powerful arm was actually shattered by a single point of a finger. "Ah!" The human devil screamed and fled with a look of terror. The youth in the white robe chased after him calmly. Every time he caught up with him, he would smash apart his body with a finger. When he reached the observatory, the human demon only had one leg left. He struggled to jump on the ground, trying to jump onto the observatory to leave this suppressed area and escape. However, the youth did not give him a chance. He pointed a finger at the human demon's forehead. The human demon roared unwillingly. "Ah, you will not have a good ending." The youth said indifferently, "You don't have to worry about me, demon." When he finished speaking, he pointed a finger and pierced through the human demon's skull. The human demon's eyes dimmed, and he collapsed completely. Everyone stared at the scene in front of them in horror. They could not believe their eyes. The arrogant human demon had been killed in the blink of an eye without being able to fight back. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, how could they believe that there was such a powerful expert in the world? In terms of real strength, even the young master, the greedy wolf king, was no match for him. The youth in the white robe put away the human demon's corpse and the sinful sword. Then he returned and untied everyone. He was Su Yu. With Su Yu's intelligence, how could he expect a simple trap to lure out the young master, who was known for his cunning? He wanted to use a series of tricks that were difficult to detect. At this moment, everyone's eyes were filled with boundless reverence as they looked at him. The white-robed sword god, who had just woken up, looked at Su Yu's bamboo hat with deep gratitude and admiration. He cupped his fists and said, "I am the white-robed sword god. Thank you for saving me." The rest of the people gathered around to express their deep gratitude. Su Yu waved his hand. It was nothing. Moreover, we are all from the same generation as the second peerless family. I am duty-bound. Everyone was surprised to hear him boast about being a member of the second peerless family. Chu Chun, who had been saved, put on her clothes again. Her slightly embarrassed face was filled with deep admiration. She said, "May I ask who you are? What is your name? I would like to thank you for saving my life." Suyu smiled. "I am Wenshang from the Venus continent." Chu Chen's eyes flashed with a charming light. She bowed and said, "So, it is Mr. Wenshang. I have heard so much about you." Although she said that, she was just as surprised as everyone else. Why had she never heard of the name Wenshang? This person was so powerful, so how could he be so unknown? "Since everyone is safe, I will go back and continue to cultivate in seclusion." Hearing this, everyone was shocked. Could Wenshang be a hidden peerless genius? There were indeed very few geniuses in history who were unknown throughout their lives. Because they spent most of their time cultivating, no one knew about them. But there were too few of them. Which genius wasn't proud and arrogant, wanted to make a name for themselves? Those who were willing to focus on cultivation and not pursue fame and fortune were few and far between. Although such a reply was surprising, it was still reasonable. Seeing that Suyu was about to leave, how could they give up and leave? A hidden genius with no background? Any faction would want to recruit him, right? "Mr. Wenshang, you saved my life. Please come to my house as a guest. I will definitely treat you with great hospitality," Chu Chun said enthusiastically. The white-robed sword god said, "Mr. Wenshang, let me treat you." Chu Chun is a woman after all. Being alone in a room will inevitably cause people to speculate. "Mr. Wenshang, I'm also very grateful for your saving grace. Please do not reject my hospitality and come to my house as a guest." "Me too." In the blink of an eye, Suyu was locked onto by many passionate gazes. They were all fighting to invite him. Chapter 22:07. "Thank you for your hospitality, but I prefer peace and quiet, so I appreciate your kindness." Suyu rejected them politely. The crowd was disappointed. It would not be easy to rope in such a person. "It's all right." The flower lady smiled. "Does Mr. Wenshang plan to go back to cultivate?" The crowd looked at Suyu, their thoughts running wild. If Mr. Wenshang really left, it would be impossible to make friends with him. Suyu thought for a while, then looked at the remnants of the battle and said, "That was indeed my initial plan, but..." Looking at the sky, Suyu furrowed his brows and said, "But the Pirate Alliance is attacking. As a member of the second peerless family, there is no reason for me to stand idly by. I have decided to stay and fight against the pirates with everyone." Hearing this, the crowd was gratified. The flower lady said, "Mr. Wenshang is a righteous man, a role model for our generation. There's no time like the present. Let's hold a welcoming banquet for young Master Wenshang today." "Good idea. Mr. Wenshang, please don't retreat. This is our kind gesture." Seeing that it was difficult to refuse, Suyu said, "All right, but let's not hold a welcoming banquet. I can't accept your welcoming banquet. Why don't we treat it as a meeting to fight against the pirates?" "All right, we'll do as you say." Thus, the crowd moved to the most luxurious restaurant in Tianqing City. Apart from Suyu, there were nearly 1,000 people present. Among them, apart from the flower lady and the white-clothed sword god, the rest of the so-called geniuses were only second-rate. The real geniuses had long since seen through Su Rushu's plot, so they did not go to the observatory. Suyu was like a crane in a flock of chickens, so he naturally became the center of attention. The Pirate Alliance's attack this time is aggressive and aimed at revenge. I think the targets of their revenge should be the Family Master and the Junior Family Master, Suyu said. Everyone pondered and nodded. This was already a consensus. The white-clothed sword god asked, "Then, how should we fight against the pirates?" "Mr. Wenshang, what do you think?" The main force to fight against the pirates was the mansion and the strong men recruited by the mansion. As the younger generation, they were actually under protection and had not been ordered to fight against the pirates. Therefore, they did not have a complete plan. Suyu was already prepared for this, and he said, "We naturally don't need to take part in a head-on battle, but we can assist from the side." "Please elaborate, young Master Shang," Flower Lady Early Dawn said. After that, Suyu discussed several feasible plans with them. Of course, It was only the general outline of the plan. It was naturally not appropriate to reveal the details. Who knew if there was an undercover pirate among them? After several days of discussion, everyone was eager to try. If he could contribute to the fight against the pirates, he would undoubtedly receive more attention from the prince's mansion in the future. After the banquet, the news spread by word of mouth. Many wandering martial artists who wanted to participate in the fight against the pirates but had no other way to go contacted Su Yu after hearing the news, hoping to join them. Over time, in just half a month, Su Yu had gathered tens of thousands of martial artists with decent abilities. Most of them had followed him because they admired Su Yu's unparalleled power of suppressing the demons. In order to better fight against the pirates, Su Yu gathered them every day to carry out group drills against the pirates and to deduce all kinds of accidents that might occur. Therefore, there was quite a commotion every day. It would be difficult for the greedy Wolf King, who lived deep in the prince's mansion, not to know about it. "Are they practicing again today?" the greedy Wolf King asked suddenly as he lowered his head and looked at the sand table. The female, down master beside him, said yes. The greedy Wolf King frowned slightly. "How many people are there now?" "More than 18,000, and the number is still increasing. Moreover, their abilities are quite good." The greedy Wolf King said thoughtfully, "Is that when Shang really that powerful?" He did not believe that the second peerless family would have a peer who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. At least, that's what the rumors say. Flower Lady Early Dawn and the white-clothed sword god could not withstand a single blow from that human demon, and the human demon was killed by Wen Shang without being able to fight back. Inferring from this, Wen Shang's abilities were quite extraordinary. The greedy Wolf King snorted. "Rumors are rumors after all. Young master, are you going to let them go? There are some unfriendly rumors circulating in the Heavenly Star City now." The female, down master, said leisurely. For example? "For example, there are rumors that Wen Shang is more talented than you, and that his future achievements will be far greater than yours. There are also rumors that he will lead the martial artists this time and make great contributions, establishing his supreme position from then on." After hearing that, the greedy Wolf King remained silent for a long time before he sneered and shook his head. "First, he is not qualified to compare with me. Second, he wants to make great contributions with the motley crew he recruited? Ridiculous." The greedy Wolf King waved his hand and ignored her. "We just need to pay attention to these deceiving people. There is no need to be too serious." The female, down master, nodded silently. "Right? Is Snow Dream Feiyu coming?" The greedy Wolf King changed the topic with a deep infatuation in his eyes. "I received a message from her half a day ago. She is on the way and will be here soon." The greedy Wolf King revealed an expectant look. "I haven't seen her for a long time. I wonder if she's doing well." The female, down master, smiled. "Lady Feiyu traveled thousands of miles just to help you. It is evident that she has deep feelings for you. Young master, you must not let her down in the future." The greedy Wolf King, let out a rare, gentle laugh. Time passed slowly, and the atmosphere in the Heavenly Star City grew heavier with each passing day. The Pirate Alliance gradually approached, and everyone tensed up, until 1 month later. In the sky above the number 2 Peerless Clan, countless pirate warships covered the sky like pitch-black clouds. Urgent alarms rang throughout the entire Heavenly Star City. The martial practitioners of the Heavenly King's residences jumped onto the warships and swarmed forward like enraged bees in a beehive. On the pirate side, there were 10 warships that were the largest among the densely packed pirate warships. A leader stood at the top of each warship. In the middle was a young woman wearing a golden cloak and a gorgeous rainbow crown. She looked to be in her early 20s. Her skin was fair and rosy, and her facial features were exquisite. She looked delicate and quiet. She was the current number 1 person in the Pirate Alliance, Xiaoye. She was like a queen looking down on the number 2 Peerless Clan. Her words rang like silver bells. "If you surrender, you'll not be killed. If you resist, you will be killed without mercy." There was no need for any unnecessary words between the two sides. Just this sentence was enough to start an earth-shattering battle. The two densely packed warships collided in the void and engaged in an intense battle. At the same time, a dazzling sun fell from each of the 10 pirate warships. Carrying different domains, they bombarded the Heavenly King's residences. In the Heavenly King's residences, a light shout that shook the universe resounded. 10 majestic figures of the Pathmasters soared into the sky. A total of 20 Pathmasters engaged in battle immediately. The collision of the domains erupted with a terrifying power that could tear apart civilization. They fought from the ground to the sky with tacit understanding, and from the sky to the distant void, so as to avoid accidentally injuring their own people. Those who remained at the scene were the main forces of both sides. Not long after, the sky was overcast with dark clouds, and it began to rain. Corpses, weapons, wreckage, and so on fell like rain. Seeing that the great battle had begun, somewhere in the heavenly star city, Suyu stood up and said in a powerful voice, "Everyone, the time to make contributions has come. Follow me to kill the enemy." Nearly 20,000 martial artists with considerable strength followed Suyu and fled. Yes, they fled the battlefield directly. The martial artists of the number 2 Peerless clan, who were fighting to the death, were all stunned when they saw this scene. Weren't these guys training hard all this time? Didn't they say they were going to make contributions on the battlefield? Why did they all run away? When the greedy Wolf King saw this scene, his eyes were filled with disdain. A bunch of unpresentable mobs. Beside him stood an extraordinarily beautiful woman in a white muslin dress. Her features were exquisite, as if she had come out of a painting. Her facial features were gentle, and her eyes were calm. Her long black hair fluttered in the wind, giving off a feeling of otherworldliness. She held a jade porcelain bottle in her hand, and a willow branch was stuck in the bottle. She pulled out the willow branch and waved it lightly, sprinkling a string of water droplets. Everywhere the water droplets passed, everything was frozen into ice. The entire pirate ship was turned into lumps of ice. No matter how many half-path masters were on the ship, they were all frozen in an instant, unable to resist. She only needed to strike 3 times to completely clear the area around her. His strength was so strong that it made people raise their eyebrows. She followed the gaze of the greedy Wolf King and looked at Suyu and the others. She said, "They haven't been summoned, so they can leave if they want." As the greedy Wolf King fought the enemy, he said disdainfully, "Sister Feiyu, you may not know this, but these people have been training hard to resist the enemy for the past month. When the enemy comes, they all run away." "I see." Hearing this, Shuiming Feiyu shook her head slightly. "That's really despicable." Then, she stopped paying attention and focused on fighting the enemy. After Suyu and the others escaped, they came to a place where the space was split open. This was the place where the Wanzhong beast was about to appear. Moreover, the Wanzhong beast that appeared here was heading towards the vicinity of the Pirate Alliance's lair. "The timing is just right," Suyu said. In fact, they had chosen several backup spots where the Wanzhong beast would appear. When the battle began, they would choose the spot where the Wanzhong beast would appear. This place was the closest, so they naturally chose this spot. When the Wanzhong beast appeared, everyone could not help but feel nervous and excited. "If we succeed, we'll really have done something big," the white-robed sword god said, licking his lips. The flower lady, Chu Chun, gritted her teeth. "Make a name for yourself. Let's go." Everyone jumped onto the Wanzhong beast. Under its lead, a few hours later, they appeared on a small, deserted civilization. On this civilization, they could see a dark mass of civilization in the distance. That was where the old lair of the Pirate Alliance was. Everyone jumped off the Wanzhong beast and concealed their breaths. Suyu said in a serious voice, "There's still one more day before the Wanzhong beast comes again. So, in one day, capture as many as you can and plunder as much as you can. Remember, do not be greedy. Do you understand?" "Yes," everyone said passionately. That's right, they were going to do something that would shake the world today. That was to rob the Pirate Alliance. Chapter 22:08. It had always been pirates robbing them, but no one had ever dared to attack the pirates. If this plan succeeded, it would surely shake the entire 7 unique civilizations. When they first heard about Su Yu's plan, everyone present felt that Su Yu's idea was too imaginative and preposterous. But as they learned more about the plan, they began to realize its feasibility. Since ancient times, the nest of the Pirate Alliance had never been besieged by the 7 unique civilizations. This was because their nest would change periodically, and there was no way to besiege it. Now that they knew where their nest was, and most of the pirates had left, leaving only an empty nest, it was the perfect opportunity for them to take advantage of. Everything was going according to plan. Although there were strong men in the nest, there weren't as many as before, and the 20,000 of them could easily plunder it. "Let's move on," Su Yu said calmly. Crash! Everyone dispersed and snuck into the nest of the Pirate Alliance from all directions to plunder. Su Yu's eyes flickered. The entire civilization was divided among the 10 great pirates. Each civilization had many things that couldn't be taken away by the portable space. Among the 10 great pirates, who had the most things, it was undoubtedly Xie Xiaoya. She was the strongest pirate among the 10 great pirates. Su Yu locked onto the area where Xie Xiaoya's pirates were and leaped into it. Through the Eye of Heaven's sweep, he soon had a panoramic view of the area. After a while, he appeared above a group of magnificent palaces. This was Xie Xiaoya's residence. There were many half-path masters here, especially in the center of the palaces. There were more than 20 half-path masters standing guard, as if there was an extremely important treasure here. Su Yu stroked his chin, but after thinking for a while, he shook his head lightly. He clearly remembered that when the 7 Unique Alliance besieged the Pirate Alliance, everyone had realized it was a trap. Only Xie Xiaoya was meticulous, and she had led her pirates out of the encirclement in advance. Why would such an intelligent person make such an unnecessary move? If an enemy pathmaster had come, wouldn't he have discovered this place immediately? Xie Xiaoya's actions were like telling the invaders that there was a treasure hidden here, and that they should come in and take it. There must be a trap inside, right? Su Yu analyzed it for a while, and was convinced that his judgment was correct. He shook his head and shifted his gaze in another direction. Suddenly, not far from this hall, they discovered another seemingly ordinary side hall. There were no guards at the entrance of the side hall, and the doors were wide open. However, the meticulous Su Yu discovered that the nearby patrolling guards had used an ingenious route to encircle the side palace. He silently observed for a while, and found that there were a total of 13 powerful guards in the palace complex. However, there were 2 places that they had to pass by during their patrol. One was the central palace, and the other was the inconspicuous side palace. It was such a slight anomaly that no one else would have noticed it. Only a meticulous and patient person like Su Yu would have noticed it. Is the most dangerous place the safest place? Su Yu had a playful smile on his face as he quietly snuck into the ordinary side palace. The furnishings in the side hall were very simple, and there was nothing unusual about it. Su Yu tapped his cheek with a finger, and a 9-color butterfly flashed past. Su Yu's vision suddenly became strange, and everything that he saw became colorful. Looking around, Su Yu's gaze suddenly fixed on a tea table on a desk. On the tea table, there was an empty teacup that had not been put away in time, and there were still remnants of tea leaves in it. However, in Su Yu's eyes, the color of the tea leaves was light blue. Su Yu's pupils shrank. It should be known that the broken love flute that was enveloped by the giant python formed by the power of heaven and earth was only dark blue in color. The light blue color in front of him was enough to show that the grade of the teacup was much higher than the broken love flute. The broken love flute should be a fairy artifact, so the teacup should be a Tao artifact, right? Could it be Xie Xiaoya's Tao artifact? Su Yu thought to himself, but immediately he shook his head. It shouldn't be. How could a Pathmaster leave a Tao artifact behind when he was about to participate in a great battle? He stepped forward and examined the teacup. After confirming that there were no seals or formations, he used his hand to pick up the tea leaves. As he did so, he found something strange. The teacup was abnormally heavy. He could not lift it with his strength alone. He looked at the tea table again. After careful examination, he found that it was made of the famous heavenly, pure Oregon. It was known as the hardest material in the 7 unique civilizations, but it was used to make a tea table. Was the purpose of this teacup? Looking at the ground below the tea table, it was also a huge, heavenly, pure Oregon. What on earth is this teacup? Suyu was surprised. With a thought, he transformed into a half-dragon and used the heavenly dragon body. With a physique that was far stronger than a Pathmaster's, he forcibly picked up the teacup. Creak! Only then did he manage to pick up the teacup. However, just as it left the tea table, the teacup suddenly turned into grains of sand, scattering all over the ground. What was even more bizarre was that the sand automatically condensed into a snake, quickly drilling into a corner at an astonishing speed. It escaped from the side hall in just a breath's time. Suyu was surprised. What was that? Space vortex. Fortunately, Suyu reacted quickly. When the snake was about to escape from the side hall and alert the guards outside, he used the power of space to restrain it. However, just as he grabbed it, the sand shattered all over the ground, then turned into a goshawk and fled. Suyu grabbed it again, but before he could touch it, its form changed again. This repeated for a full 36 rounds. Only then did the strange sand run out of energy. It struggled on the ground, but failed to change its form. It lay powerlessly on the ground, motionless. Suyu heaved a sigh of relief. His heavenly dragon body almost couldn't deal with this sand. It was incredible. He took out a container and tried to put all the sand in it. However, nothing could contain him. It was easily crushed. Suyu had no choice but to take it along with the heavenly pure or tea table. After taking away the mysterious sand, Suyu looked around with a vision of Shao Dai. He found that in the heavily guarded palace, there was a treasure that was emitting a green radiance. He believed that it was a bait to lure the half-path masters. The real treasure was this piece of sand. Having obtained what he wanted, Suyu's eyes flashed as he snuck into the local treasure house. In fact, there weren't many valuable treasures in the treasure house. However, since Suyu had come here, he naturally had to cause a commotion. He appeared in front of the treasure house, openly beat up several martial artists guarding the treasure house, entered it, and plundered it clean. All of a sudden, the whole palace was in an uproar. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Loud alarms resounded in every corner of the palace. Many experts gathered from all directions to capture the invading enemies. Suyu's face was calm. He was at ease in the palace. When he passed by a cage in the imperial palace, a thought struck him and he entered it. Most of them were captives from the 7 unique civilizations. What surprised Suyu was that the scene was different from what he had imagined, where the captives had been tortured in various ways. These captives were dressed in clean clothes. Although they looked worried, they didn't seem to be in pain. They didn't seem to have been tortured. This was completely different from the pirates he knew. Take the Sea Wolves pirates, for example. All the people of the 7 unique civilizations who were captured by them were killed on the spot. Those who were valuable were locked up and tortured for all kinds of information. In the end, unless they were returned as hostages, they were all killed cruelly. This was the first time Suyu had seen something like this. Who are you? Suyu had blasted 2 half-step path masters into the dungeon with a single punch, which immediately piqued everyone's curiosity. In a solitary cage, a young girl was standing with her hands clasped behind her back. She was sizing him up curiously. Suyu replied briefly, the second peerless family, Wenshang. As he spoke, he grabbed the cage and forcefully broke it open. The young girl covered her small mouth, dumbfounded. These cages weren't made of ordinary materials. They were made with heavenly pure ore and 10,000 years black copper. Even Pathmasters couldn't break these cages with their bodies. What's wrong with this plated bamboo, Hat Man? If you want to go back, then follow me. Suyu turned around and left. The young girl and the others didn't dare to hesitate, and they all followed him. As soon as they left the dungeon, they ran into a group of half-step Pathmasters who attacked them furiously. Suyu took out the sinful sword and swept it around. The powerful sword energy scared away all the half-step Pathmasters along the way. None of them dared to approach him. The sword energy was so powerful that it could take their lives. Just like that, Suyu swaggered away with a group of half-step pathmasters who were looking at him with fear and anger. By the time they returned to the civilization they had come from, a day had already passed. Many people came back one after another. "How's your situation?" Suyu asked. Early Dawnflower Lady was elated. She laughed and said, "I burned down the White Sparrow Pirate's lair. His subordinates are probably putting out the fire." The white-clothed sword god chuckled. "What's so great about letting them go? I brought some people with me and turned Zhang Tian's lair upside down. I robbed anyone I saw, and I took all the good stuff I saw. I guess they were so angry that they vomited blood. The rest of the people all had great gains. In any case, the entire Pirate Alliance's lair was in chaos." "What about you, Mr. Wenshang?" the Flower Lady of the White Sparrow Pirates asked. Suyu chuckled. "Compared to you, I didn't do much. All I did was sneak into Xie Xiaoya's palace and rescue some people in the dungeon." The Flower Lady of the White Sparrow Sword God and the White-Clothed Sword God looked at the group of people behind Suyu. When their gazes swept past the others, they didn't notice anything. However, when they looked at the young girl in the black dress, who had a sweet temperament, they were both stunned. It was as if they had seen this girl before and had some impression of her. The two of them looked at each other and saw a familiar look in each other's eyes. Chapter 2209. What a familiar face. The new Dawnflower Lady looked at the young girl. "Have I seen you before?" The white-robed sword god had the same look in his eyes. The young girl in the black dress shook her head lightly and said calmly, "No." The two of them were puzzled. The new Dawnflower Lady was about to continue asking when suddenly a series of cracking sounds rang out. It was the Wanzhong beast. "Leave immediately," Suyu said. Although the top 10 pirates were not in their lair, the leaders of the other small and medium-sized pirates were still there. After all, there were Dowlords among them. Now that the entire lair was in such a huge commotion, the Pathmasters might have already noticed it. Although hundreds of people had not returned, they could not wait for them. They jumped off the Wanzhong beast. Not long after they left, 3 furious auras of the Pathmasters descended upon the civilization. "We were robbed." A Pathmaster with a ferocious expression could not believe his eyes. It had always been pirates robbing others, but now they were being robbed by others? To the Pirate Alliance, this was a great humiliation. "Inform the top 10 pirates of the front line to return immediately," one of the pirates said calmly. Just 20,000 martial artists had caused great trouble for the lair. If the enemy's army came, wouldn't the lair be destroyed? Meanwhile, in the sky above the second peerless family, after a day of battle, the ground was covered with corpses and severed fingers. Destroyed warships were stuck in the ground. The shockwaves caused many of the few precious oases to be in a state of desolation. After the battle, both sides had suffered heavy casualties. The impenetrable dark clouds in the sky had also become sparser. In the sky, the top 10 pirates were fighting against the strong men of the second peerless family. Although the Pirate Alliance was aggressive, the second peerless family was extremely powerful. They were able to resist the attacks of the top 10 pirates. The master of the family, in particular, had displayed shocking strength. A casual strike from him could threaten the lives of the pirate leaders. Many of the pirate leaders were trembling with fear. It was not easy to become the master of the family. Fortunately, Xie Xiaoya was among the pirate leaders. Her strength was equally terrifying, and she was evenly matched with the Pajuan Emperor. It was thanks to her that the Pajuan Emperor was suppressed, and the pirates did not show any signs of defeat. But in the long run, other than increasing the number of casualties, there was no better result. Therefore, after fighting for a while, Xie pushed Emperor defeating armies away with one palm and said indifferently, "Stop." The 9 pirates unwillingly retreated and returned to Xie Xiaoya's side. They could also see that it was impossible to kill Emperor Pajuan. This person had concealed a large portion of his strength. He was much more powerful than the rumors said. They looked down and saw that the people of the second most powerful family had suffered heavy casualties. They let out sighs of relief. Although they didn't manage to kill Emperor Pajuan, More than half of the experts of the second peerless clan had died. They wouldn't be able to recover in the next few thousand years. In this way, it could be considered as revenge. Second peerless family, this isn't over yet. Be careful. Xiaoxiao threatened faintly and ordered her pirates to retreat. The other pirate leaders ordered their men to leave. At that moment, the 10 pirate leaders received urgent messages at the same time. At a glance, the expressions of the 10 pirate leaders changed drastically. All of them raised their heads and glared fiercely at Emperor Pajun. Emperor Pajun, you win. They had mistakenly thought that Su Yu's group had been sent by Emperor Pajun. Emperor Pajun. His words confused him. Looking at the pirates retreating, his heart was filled with shock and doubt. Master, should we chase after them? The beautiful woman in the palace gown floated over. She was suppressing the injuries on her body as she asked reluctantly. Emperor Pajun fear appeared in his eyes. With Xiaoxiao around, we won't be able to get anything out of this. The beautiful woman in the palace gown said reluctantly. According to the plan, the current master should have revealed his hidden strength. He should have been able to capture all 10 pirates in one go. Who would have thought that Xiaoxiao would have hidden her strength so deeply? All along, Emperor Pajun, among the masters of the 7 great families, his strength had always been at the bottom. He had always kept a low profile. That was because he had deliberately hidden his strength so that one day he would be able to give his enemies an unexpected enemy. However, he hadn't expected that his enemy would also hide his strength. I'm afraid it won't be a day's work to annihilate the pirates. The beautiful woman in the palace gown paused for a moment, then said, But master, what did their last sentence mean? They seem to have retreated in a hurry after receiving the message. Could it be that master has other plans? No. Emperor Pajun was also very confused about this matter. Filled with doubts, they all returned to the second peerless family to deal with the aftermath. How was the battle? Emperor Pajun asked King Greedy Wolf, who was calculating the situation. The latter's expression was gloomy as he said in a low voice, 3 million casualties. Only 3 million casualties was a drop in the ocean for the second peerless family. Just this? Emperor Pajun, King Greedy Wolf said. I'm talking about those above the emperor level. There is no need to calculate the casualties of those below. What he meant was that those who hadn't reached the emperor level were dead and not worthy of attention. Emperor Pajun, hearing this, his expression darkened. 3 million. That was almost half of the experts of the second peerless family. The second peerless family's casualties had exceeded their bottom line. If they wanted to recover in the future, it would be impossible without hundreds or thousands of years of rest. In this battle, the second peerless family's casualties were too great. Not only were they gloomy, but the martial practitioners who had luckily survived were also sad and indignant. The Pirate Alliance had dealt a devastating blow to the second peerless family. The second peerless family was enveloped in an oppressive gloominess. Emperor Pajun gathered the survivors. For this battle, there will be rewards and punishment. Half a day later, in the second peerless family's mansion, Emperor Pajun looked around at the remaining 15 half-step Dowlords. Their strength was at the peak of the half-step Dowlords, and every one of them controlled an armed force. Before the battle, there had been 30 of them. Now there were only 15. Chun Sheng killed 30,000 enemies. First-class merit. Wen Qian killed 20,000 enemies. First-class merit. Emperor Pajun rewarded them according to their accomplishments. However, no one present could laugh. How could they be proud after such a devastating blow to the second peerless family? When all 15 of them had been rewarded, Emperor Pajun, he rubbed his forehead wearily and waved his hand. Go and receive your rewards. Everyone lowered their heads and walked out in low spirits. At this moment, a servant suddenly reported from outside the hall. Patriarch, Dawnflower Maiden requests an audience. Emperor Pajun. He didn't even open his eyes. I won't see her. As a member of a branch family, although her talent was passable and he had taken a liking to her, He really didn't want to see her right now. Patriarch, Dawnflower Maiden, says that she has something very important to discuss with you. She said that she just returned from the Pirate Alliance's base. Emperor Pajun, what nonsense is she talking about? Did she know what kind of place the Pirate Alliance's base was? Did she know where it was? It's absolutely true. Young Master Wenshong, the white-robed sword god, and more than 20,000 other cultivators came with her. Moreover, they brought back a large amount of spoils of war. Emperor Pajun was stunned. Those who hadn't left yet were just as stunned. It couldn't be true, could it? The greedy Wolf King frowned deeply. I remember that they fled at the last moment. How could they have run to the Pirate Alliance's base? What a load of nonsense. In truth, he was a little convinced. He just didn't want to admit it. They had fought the pirates here and suffered heavy casualties, but young Master Wenshong had led a mere 20,000 people to rob the Pirate Alliance. In comparison, his young master's performance was rather pathetic. He really didn't like the feeling of being trampled on. Emperor Pajun had other thoughts. He probably wouldn't believe it if others said that he had killed his way into the Pirate Alliance. However, Dawnflower Maiden was a member of his family. She definitely wouldn't dare to lie to him about such a big matter. Let them in, Emperor Pajun said in a deep voice after thinking for a moment. The people who were about to leave couldn't help but stop in their tracks and watch from the side. Soon, under the guidance of the servants, they all entered. More than 19,000 people stood upright with proud expressions on their faces. Emperor Pajun, tell me again, where did you come from? Dawnflower Maiden smiled proudly. Patriarch, we just robbed the pirates' base. Hearing this, everyone present looked over and whispered to each other. The greedy Wolf King had a cold expression as he said indifferently, Don't tell me that you ambushed a small pirate near the pirate's base and claimed to have robbed the entire pirate's base. He was absolutely unwilling to admit that their 20,000 people could do something that he didn't even dare to think about. Emperor Pajun smiled and said, You claim to have robbed the pirate's base. You should have brought back some things, right? Of course. Dawnflower Maiden smiled proudly and glanced at the greedy Wolf King with a mocking gaze. The greedy Wolf King had suppressed the branches of the aristocratic families many times. Now that she had made a great contribution, it was like slapping the greedy Wolf King in the face. She took out a portable cavern world and poured out the things inside. Huge ships unique to the White Sparrow pirates were floating in the air above the prince's mansion. These are the main warships of the White Sparrow pirates. There are a total of 10 warships. Why are they all here? Oh my God. Don't tell me they really robbed the Pirate Alliance's base? Everyone present was shocked. Emperor Pajun, his pupils constricted, but his eyes were filled with joy. He said, Where are the others? You can't be the only one who succeeded, right? Haha, I am untalented, but I also plundered some things. Please have a look, Patriarch. The white-robed sword god also took out a portable cavern world and poured out a dense amount of storage devices. There were hundreds of thousands of them. The storage devices of Dao Master Zhong, Tiandao subordinates? Only sovereigns of heaven and earth would be rewarded with this. There are more than 300,000 of them? How many people did you rob? With Dawnflower Maiden and the white-robed sword god taking the lead, the rest of the martial artists proudly took out their spoils. Chapter 22:10. All of them belonged to the Pirate Alliance. In total, more than 30% of the Pirate Alliance's lair had been looted. Seeing this, the Pajuan Emperor's gloomy face finally lit up with joy. Ah, well done. You've really given this patriarch a pleasant surprise. He suddenly recalled the words that the pirate leaders had said before they left. Now, he suddenly realized what they had said. It turned out that the pirate leaders had mistakenly thought that he was a diversion and had sent people to raid their lair. The Pirate Alliance had come to take revenge on the Second Peerless family, and the Second Peerless family had raided their lair. The Pajuan Emperor was in a good mood. He stepped forward and patted the shoulders of the Flower Lady and the white-clothed sword god. You two have done a great job. I will reward you handsomely. The two of them were overjoyed. How could they, who had been ignored, have such a day come? However, Although they wanted to take the credit for themselves, how could they dare to hide it in front of so many people? There were nearly 20,000 people who knew the details. Moreover, Wenshang was their leader. If they dared to take the credit for themselves so openly, they would probably be exposed on the spot and end up in an embarrassing situation. Thus, despite her reluctance, Morning Flower Lady had no choice but to reveal the details. Patriarch, I was only following orders during this mission. The white-clothed sword god hurriedly said, Yes, we had an expert to guide us. The Pajuan Emperor was surprised. Expert? Who? The Flower Lady and the white-clothed sword god looked at Su Yu and said, It was this young master Wenshang, who has incredible foresight. Wenshang? The Pajuan Emperor was slightly surprised. How could he not have heard of young Master Wenshang in Tianxing City? Recently, his name could be said to be known by everyone. There were rumors everywhere that a peerless genius had appeared in the city. Not only was he extremely powerful, but he was also resourceful. Moreover, he had been organizing a large number of martial artists to train against the pirates. However, the Pajuan Emperor had only heard about it and was not concerned about it. He had seen too many geniuses, and the one in front of him was not worthy of his observation. He had never expected that he would appear in front of him with such an identity. It was really unexpected. Young Master Wenshang, can you tell me your specific plan? The Pajuan Emperor asked with great interest. Su Yu was neither servile nor overbearing, and he simply recounted what had happened. His plan sounded ridiculous and had no chance of success. But among the many plans, there were also many exquisite little plans that allowed things that seemed impossible to succeed to be successfully implemented in the end. After listening to him, the Pajuan Emperor looked at Su Yu in disbelief. At this moment, he had a feeling that he was not facing a young man who was only 100 years old, but an old monster of the same generation as him. Deeply surprised, he looked at his son, Greed King. The greedy Wolf King was considered smart among his peers, but compared to young Master Wenshang of the same age, there was an insurmountable gap. At the very least, his son had never thought of robbing the Pirate Alliance. He looked at Su Yu as if he was looking at a rising star. If there were no accidents, his achievements in the future would be shocking. Seeing his father's expression, the greedy Wolf King's heart sank bit by bit. He stared at Su Yu and said, Since you were the one who organized this operation, it can't be that everyone else got something, but you got nothing, right? Hearing this, everyone was filled with anticipation. As the planner of the operation, he should be able to plunder more things. Su Yu shook his head lightly and said, I robbed Xiao's pirates, but it's a pity that there was an ambush inside, so I couldn't plunder much. He casually took out a space storage device and poured out the things inside. What caught his eye was a dazzling array of various resources. The number was innumerable, and it was probably not much less than everyone else's combined. Seeing this scene, everyone present could not help but be dumbfounded. Did he empty Xiao's entire treasure house? The greedy Wolf King's eyelids twitched slightly, and he shut his mouth tightly, the expression in his eyes changing constantly. The Pajuan Emperor was overjoyed, and he laughed loudly. Xiao will probably die of anger when she returns. He had gone to take revenge, but his lair had been turned upside down, and even the treasure house had been emptied. Su Yu said, It's nothing much. By the way, I also rescued some people. They should be captives from the 7 great families. He waved his hand and asked everyone to come forward. The Pajuan Emperor looked at them and nodded slightly. Yes, they are indeed captives from the 7 great families. If we return them, the other 6 great families will owe us another favor. Suddenly, the Pajuan Emperor saw a young lady in a black dress, and his eyes froze for a moment. The young lady looked familiar, as if he had seen her somewhere before, but he could not recall where. After a moment of doubt, he stopped thinking about it. Perhaps she was a child of one of the great families, and he had seen her by accident. He looked at Su Yu with great interest and laughed loudly. Mr. Wenshang's strength is astonishing, and his wisdom is unparalleled. He is indeed a dragon among men. Come, let's set up a banquet to welcome Mr. Wenshang and the other meritorious officials. The originally gloomy prince's mansion was instantly enveloped in a joyous atmosphere. The whole heavenly star city was also crazily spreading a piece of exciting news. The people of the second peerless family had taken advantage of the battle between the two armies to plunder the pirate alliance. For them, who were full of grievances, this was undoubtedly exciting news that could wipe away their previous humiliation. All of a sudden, the whole city celebrated. In the prince's mansion, the Pajuan emperor personally invited Suyu, the flower lady, and the white-clothed sword god to a banquet. On behalf of the second peerless family, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all of you. The Pajuan emperor was in a good mood. After tomorrow, the news would spread throughout the entire 7 unique civilizations. Not only did the second peerless family resist the fierce revenge of the pirate alliance, but they also secretly emptied the nest of the pirate alliance. When this news spread, the reputation of the second peerless family would be greatly boosted. Suyu said, "As a member of the second peerless family, this is what we should do." Seeing Suyu being so modest, the Pajuan emperor had a better impression of him, and he raised his wine cup and drank it in one gulp. However, from the corner of his eye, he found that his son's face was expressionless, and the wine cup in front of him was not moved at all. "Greedy wolf, why don't you propose a toast to Mr. Wenshang?" The Pajuan emperor was slightly displeased. The greedy wolf king nodded, picked up his wine cup, and silently toasted Suyu. Then, he drank it himself, stood up, and said, "Father, the aftermath of the battle cannot be done without people. I will go and preside over it." After saying that, he nodded slightly to the crowd and left calmly. Although he did not show it on the surface, his actions were enough to show his mood. "Mr. Wenshang, please enjoy your drink. I will take my leave now." The extremely beautiful Shui Mengfiu smiled at Suyu and also stood up to leave. Suyu had already heard about this exceptionally beautiful woman from the flower lady Chuchen. She was the heir of the 6th peerless family, and the only peerless fairy in the 7 unique civilizations who could compare to Bai Yunhong Xian. Not only did she have a high status, but she was also extremely powerful. Moreover, she had a good relationship with the greedy wolf king since they were young, and they often played in the palace of the second peerless family. The two of them could be considered childhood sweethearts. The second peerless family and the 6th peerless family were trying to matchmake the two of them. More importantly, the proud greedy wolf king was very concerned about Shui Mengfiu, and the latter was also very concerned about the greedy wolf king. Although Shui Mengfiu was not married yet, she could already be considered half a daughter-in-law of the second peerless family. Since they were husband and wife, she would naturally follow the greedy wolf king. She would also reject whoever the greedy wolf king hated. Of course, to Suyu, Shui Mengfiu was not worth mentioning, and he had never even looked at her. He did not need to care about her attitude at all. "My son was rude, and I have embarrassed myself in front of you," the Pajuan emperor said apologetically. Suyu said, "It doesn't matter. You didn't do anything wrong." The Pajuan emperor sighed, and after thinking for a moment, he said, "Young Master Wenshang is very intelligent. Would you like to stay in the palace?" Suyu replied without hesitation, "My abilities are limited, and I'm afraid that I will disappoint you." "Hee, you are too modest. With your intelligence, you can take on any position," the Pajuan emperor said. Suyu refused again. Seeing this, the Pajuan emperor said, "You can think about it again. As long as you are willing to stay, I will definitely put you in an important position." The banquet ended just like that. When the Pajuan emperor returned to the backyard, he saw that the greedy wolf king was cultivating in the yard, and Shui Mengfiu was watching from aside. "Miss Shui Mengfiu, I have something to say to the greedy wolf king. You should go back to your room and rest first." Shui Mengfiu nodded obediently, then left with light steps. After she left, the greedy wolf king said calmly, "If you want to talk about Wenshang, then don't." Humph! Unexpectedly, the Pajuan emperor's face became gloomy. "Useless thing." As he spoke, he stepped forward and slapped the greedy wolf king. The greedy wolf king wanted to dodge, but could he? He was slapped squarely, and he spun on the spot, then fell to the ground. "Father, are you going to teach me a lesson for an outsider?" The greedy Wolf King's eyes were filled with deep hatred. He was already furious that he had been trampled by Suyu. So how could he feel good if he was implicated because of Suyu? I am not teaching you a lesson for an outsider, but for yourself, the Pajuan Emperor said coldly. I have taught you again and again that you should not show your emotions. But you're giving me a hard time before you even spoke 3 sentences. How could the second most powerful family be entrusted to someone like you who is so unsophisticated? The greedy Wolf King only calmed down after being scolded repeatedly. His previous behavior was indeed not befitting of a family successor. I have disobeyed father's teachings. The greedy Wolf King admitted his mistake. Seeing that the greedy Wolf King had admitted his mistake, the Pajuan Emperor's face softened, and he said, "Besides your temperament, do you know what else you have done wrong?" The greedy Wolf King thought for a moment, then said, "I should not have competed with Wenshang." "That's right," the Pajuan Emperor said. "What is your identity?" "What is his identity?" The greedy Wolf King pondered, and he gradually understood. "You are the young master of the second most powerful family, the future successor of the family." "What about Wenshang?" "You are just a subject of the second most powerful family. In the future, he is destined to crawl at your feet and work for you, but you have lowered yourself to compete with such a person. Don't you think it is ridiculous?" The greedy Wolf King's gloomy mood suddenly improved. Indeed, no matter how outstanding Wenshang was, he was still a person who had to serve him. Chapter 22:11. Why should he be angry with such a person? You should think of a way to win over Wenshang and make him a talent that you can control, a stepping stone for you to reach the pinnacle, instead of fighting against him like you are now. After hearing this, the greedy Wolf King lowered his head, the gloominess on his face gone, and he said, "I understand. Then, I don't need to tell you what to do next, do I? I already have an idea." After leaving the banquet, Suyu returned to the inn. After isolating the space, he took out a handful of sand and placed it in his palm. Because it was too heavy, Suyu did not dare to put on the ground. Otherwise, the ground would collapse. Is this a material or some kind of treasure? Suyu thought back to the fact that it could freely change into various forms. It should be the latter. Since it was a treasure, it should be possible to refine it. He tried to drip a drop of blood on it. However, these grains of sand were very intelligent and scattered, avoiding the blood essence. You don't want to be refined? Suyu smiled and used the power of space to stop them from moving. Then, he tried to drip a drop of blood on it again. However, these grains of sand started to spin on their own, blocking the essence blood outside. He tried several times, but a lot of blood was wasted, and he could not refine it. Finally, he dripped a drop of blood on the sand, but it was forced out by the sand. After a few tries, Suyu stopped and said to himself, "I'm afraid ordinary methods will not be able to refine it. If it could be refined, Xie Xiaoye would have done it long ago, and Suyu would not have been able to take it away. If even the Pathmaster could not do anything about it, then he could only try another method." After thinking for a while, Suyu took out a grain of world destruction dust. Suyu threw the world destroying dust into the same pile of sand. In the end, a slightly surprising scene appeared. The restless sand seemed to have found a master. Not only did it not repel the world destruction dust, but it actively gathered around it. Really? Suyu was slightly surprised. Was there any connection between the sand and the world destruction dust? As he pondered, Suyu dripped a drop of blood on it, but it was not to refine the sand, but to refine the world destruction dust. Since the sand was mainly based on the world destruction dust, wouldn't refining the world destruction dust mean that he could indirectly control the sand? After a long while, the refinement was completed. Suyu was filled with anticipation as he gently drew a line in the air with his finger. The world destroyer dust moved like an extension of his arm. The sand attached to it also followed the trajectory of the apocalypse dust, forming a stick made of sand in the air. Suyu held it in his hand. With the existence of the world-destroying dust, the weight of this rod was immeasurable. At the very least, it could destroy a 5-star civilization with a single strike. If combined with the powerful body of the heavenly dragon body, even a Taoist master would be smashed to death with a single strike. He just didn't know if it would be effective against powerful Dao masters like Golden-Eyed Gentleman, Xie Xiaoye, and Emperor Defeating Army. Of course, the sand wasn't limited to condensing into sticks. Their greatest use was that they could change their forms at will. In other words, Suyu possessed a magical treasure that could change its form at will. Coupled with the weight of the world destroying dust, one could imagine its power. After spending an entire night, he finally managed to deal with the sand. Dong dong. Just as Suyu was about to enter a state of cultivation, someone knocked on the door. When he opened the door, he saw that it was Morning Flower Girl and the white-robed sword god. Haha, young Master Wenshang, are you free today? Let's go out for a gathering. The white-robed sword god said. Suyu had never liked socializing, but now, what he wanted most was to socialize. Sure, Morning Flower Girl smiled. We've booked a private room at the Tai-Bai Tower. There's a mysterious person waiting for you there. Mysterious person? Suyu's eyes turned slightly. Not long after, at the Tai-Bai Tower, when he opened the door, he saw the greedy Wolf King. Xuemeng Fiyu was accompanying him. Changing his attitude from the day before, the greedy Wolf King stood up and walked to the door to welcome Suyu enthusiastically. He said, Young Master Wenshang, please forgive us for our poor hospitality yesterday. Xuemeng Fiyu also walked over and said softly, Young Master Wenshang, how are you doing? Suyu's eyes flickered slightly. These two people's attitudes were completely different from the day before. It's all right, Suyu said magnanimously. Behind him, Morning Flower Girl and the white-robed sword god heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Suyu didn't fling his sleeves and leave on the spot. Last night, the greedy Wolf King had found the two of them, hoping that they could ask Suyu out on his behalf. They had wanted to refuse, but the young master's orders were beyond their control. Fortunately, Suyu was magnanimous and did not mind the greedy Wolf King's rude behavior the day before. Young Master Wenshang, please take a seat. The greedy Wolf King was extremely polite. Suyu politely sat down and said, The young master invited me here. If there's anything important, please speak frankly. The greedy Wolf King smiled. Young Master Wenshang has made great contributions to the second peerless family. As the young master, it is only right for me to express my gratitude. Brother Wenshang, do not worry. Winning someone over was not something that could be done in a day. The most important thing now was to ease his relationship with young Master Wenshang. Suyu laughed lightly. Young Master, you're too kind. I'm just doing my best. Besides, I only came up with an idea. The real credit should go to those who contributed. Hearing that Suyu did not mind, the greedy Wolf King was relieved. The rest of the banquet was unusually relaxed. When the banquet came to an end, Morning Flower Girl and the white-robed sword god tactfully left. The main guest of the banquet was Suyu. After the banquet, the young master would probably have something to say to Suyu that he did not want outsiders to hear. Finally, only the three of them were left. Brother Wenshang, wait a moment. I prepared a gift for you. I'll bring it over now. The greedy Wolf King laughed and left. Only Suyu and Xuemeng Feiyu were left in the room. The two of them were not familiar with each other, and they did not have a common topic. Xuemeng Feiyu pursed her lips and raised her wine cup to toast Suyu. Young Master Wenshang, let me toast you. Thank you. Suyu raised his wine cup, clinked it with hers, and drank it in one gulp. Perhaps to ease the awkwardness, Xuemeng Feiyu took the initiative to start a conversation. Young Master, you're so intelligent that even the family master praised you. You flatter me. I'm not that outstanding. Xuemeng Feiyu smiled lightly. You're the one who's too humble. After thinking for a moment, Xuemeng Feiyu said, I have a presumptuous request. Tell me about it. Suyu looked into her bright eyes and said calmly. Xuemeng Feiyu said, I once found a remnant of a book written with strange words in a relic. I've been studying it for many years, but I still can't figure it out. I wonder if young Master Wenshang could explain it to me? Words? Suyu was most proficient in all kinds of words, right? I don't know much about words, so I only know a thing or two. If Miss Xuemeng trusts me, please let me have a look at the remnant of the book. Xuemeng Feiyu nodded and handed over the remnant of the book. Suyu glanced at it and was surprised to find that the remnant of the book was written with the words of the wordless heavenly book. Moreover, the The content of the book was very complicated. Young master, do you understand it? A fragrant breeze blew over. It was simple and refreshing, and it made one feel relaxed and happy. Suyu raised his head and saw that Xuanming Feiyu had sat down. She was stretching her upper body forward, and her beautiful face was almost touching his. Her bright eyes stared unblinkingly at the letter, hoping that Suyu would say something. Suyu moved slightly to the side and said calmly, I know a little. This should be a cultivation technique written with the wordless heavenly book. It's called the Heaven-Devouring 18-character scripture. It seems like it's only the preface of the cultivation technique. It doesn't have any actual content, so it's not very useful. You know the words of the heavenly book? Xuanming Feiyu asked in surprise. I know a thing or two. Suyu nodded. Suddenly, he squinted his eyes and realized that something was amiss. First, Xuanming Feiyu knew that this was the words of the heavenly book. Second, she wasn't surprised by what the remnant of the book was. In other words, she already knew what the contents of the remnant of the book were. So, why did she deliberately show it to him? At that moment, Suyu was extremely cautious. Almost at the same time, Xuanming Feiyu's eyes became unfathomable. That's great. It seems like I found something good for Brother Jingyan. As soon as she finished speaking, Suyu felt an extreme coldness on his back. Her hands, which were hidden behind her back, had unsheathed the white jade bottle. The liquid inside was poured out and sprinkled on Suyu's body. Suyu, who was caught off guard, was instantly frozen. He didn't even have a chance to resist. Through the ice, Suyu could see Suyu's shock, confusion. It was as if he was asking why. Xuanming Feiyu smiled and touched Suyu's head. She smiled calmly like before. However, there was an additional tinge of shrewdness in her smile. Do you know? I had wanted to make you evaporate and kill 2 birds with 1 stone. However, seeing that you will be of help to Brother Jingyun, I will spare your life. Xuanming Feiyu exhaled as she spoke. Her eyes were filled with an unsettling evilness. You must be very confused. However, you'll understand very soon. Just watch. After saying that, Xuanming Feiyu took off her purple girdle. Her snow-white dress immediately loosened, revealing a faintly discernible red bra. It was an alluring sight. Then, she messed up her hair and scratched her wrists, leaving 2 bright red marks on them. At first glance, she looked like a woman who had been violated. When she heard the footsteps of the greedy Wolf King returning, Xuanming Feiyu's calm smile immediately turned into a look of fear and misery. She even pretended to be on the verge of tears. She covered her chest and curled up in a corner, sobbing. The greedy Wolf King walked in with a smile on his face, holding a long sword that had been forged. In the end, what he saw was the scene before him. He was stunned for 3 breaths' time. Then, he threw down the long sword and ran in front of Xuanming Feiyu. He looked at her, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. It was obvious that he was extremely nervous. Feiyu, what happened? He looked at the 2 clear marks on Xuanming Feiyu's wrists. Then, he looked at her messy clothes and messy hair. His heart sank. Chapter 22:12. Seeing that she was avoiding his gaze, unwilling to tell the truth, the greedy Wolf King's heart sank. Mr. Wenshang must have violated Xuanming Feiyu while he was away. However, Xuanming Feiyu did not want to affect his plan to recruit Mr. Wenshang, so she said that she was fine. But how could she be fine? At this moment, the greedy Wolf King felt as if his chest was about to explode, and his heart was riddled with holes. His face was gradually covered in ice, and his facial features twisted rapidly, becoming extremely ferocious. Wenshang. He turned his head abruptly, like a man-eating beast, and stared at Suyu fiercely. I want to tear you into pieces. However, just as he was about to rush over, Xuanming Feiyu hugged him from behind and said, Greedy Wolf, don't do this. If anything happens to Wenshang, the master will not let you off easily. No, care. The greedy Wolf King fell into a boundless rage. His woman had been tainted by another man. He could not forgive that. I only want him to die. The greedy Wolf King roared and pounced over her. However, Xuanming Feiyu took out a 3-pattern pill and said, If you really want to kill him, then I will die too." Hearing this, the greedy Wolf King turned around and grabbed her hand. "Are you crazy?" Xue Meng Fei Yu cried. "I don't want you to be harmed because of me." The greedy Wolf King snorted angrily. He snatched the three-colored pill from her hand and said, "Don't mess around. Wait until I kill him. Then I will explain to my father that he has violated your purity. He deserves to die." As for the three-colored pill in his hand, the greedy Wolf King crushed it. However, the moment he crushed it, something strange happened. A ball of strange, three-colored smoke shot out from the pill. The smoke adhered to the surface of the greedy Wolf King's body and quickly drilled into it. The greedy Wolf King was shocked and said, "What pill is this? Of course it was specially prepared for you." A familiar voice rang in his ears. Then he felt a chill on his back, and his body quickly froze. In the end, apart from his head, his entire body was frozen in ice, unable to move. Only his lips could open to speak. "Flying Rain, why are you doing this to me?" Greedy Wolf King was furious. Betraying a loved one was far more painful and unacceptable than any other kind of pain. "Then what do you think you have that is worthy of me dealing with?" Xue Meng Fei Yu calmly picked up the belt on the ground and put it on. At the same time, she elegantly combed her messy hair. At this moment, how could he not understand that when Shang had never violated Xue Meng Fei Yu? She had directed and acted all by herself. The greedy Wolf King was incomparably furious as he roared. "Do you want my luck?" Xue Meng Fei Yu laughed lightly. "It's not me, it's Big Brother Jingyan." "Big Brother Jingyan?" The greedy Wolf King was taken aback for a moment before his anger flared up. "Are you talking about human Jingyan?" Xue Meng Fei Yu's eyes were filled with affection. Who else could it be? Ren Jingyun, the successor of the 7th Peerless family. He was known as the #1 half-step Dowlord. His strength was #1 in his generation. "You want to steal my luck for him?" The greedy Wolf King's eyes almost popped out of their sockets as he vaguely understood something. Xue Meng Fei Yu calmly looked at the greedy Wolf King with a hint of mockery in her eyes. "Do you really think that I, Xue Meng Fei Yu, will fall for you? Or do you think that you have an advantage over Big Brother Jingyan?" Xue Meng Fei Yu no longer concealed her disdain for the greedy Wolf King. "Just because you can't control your temper? Just because you think that you're in love with me? Just because of your mediocre strength? To be honest, we're both successors of the 7 Peerless families, but you're not even worthy of carrying Big Brother Jingyun's shoes." It turned out that the greedy Wolf King's childhood sweetheart had already fallen in love with someone else. "Initially, I didn't want to have anything to do with you after I met Big Brother Jingyan. But who asked Big Brother Jingyan to say that your luck is very good?" Xue Meng Fei Yu's eyes were filled with infatuation. "So, I can only continue to endure the humiliation and steal your luck for Big Brother Jingyan." The greedy Wolf King trembled with anger when he heard her confession, and his eyes turned bloodshot. "Ah, bitch, bitch, bitch." He raised his head and shouted "bitch" 3 times to vent the anger in his heart. He had treated Xue Meng Fei Yu with all his heart, but what did he get in return? It was a complete and utter betrayal. From the very beginning, Xue Meng Fei Yu had been lying to him. Every time she cared for him, every time she smiled at him, every time she was intimate with him, it was all fake. Her heart was filled with another man. The greedy Wolf King's heart was about to collapse, and he roared with bloodshot eyes, "Bitch, you want to steal my luck? It's not that easy. If something like luck could really be stolen, then he wouldn't have been able to live until now." Xue Meng Fei Yu laughed mockingly. "Are you still dreaming now? Do you think that your luck will save you when you're in danger? Do you think that I've been by your side all these years without doing anything? I've long since understood your so-called luck thoroughly." Xue Meng Fei Yu said, "Your so-called luck is actually a pearl left behind by the luck Dowlord in your body, right? It contains the luck domain of the luck Dowlord. Once you're in danger, it will automatically activate and resolve the problem for you. Occasionally, when it's activated, it will even bring you heaven-defying luck, right?" The greedy Wolf King gritted his teeth. He hadn't been on his guard against Xue Meng Fei Yu all these years. Even though he hadn't intentionally revealed the secret of his luck, she had still deduced it. Bitch! The greedy wolf king gnashed his teeth with hatred. Shuimeng Feiyu was indifferent. Curse all you want. In any case, you'll be dead soon. Her words were filled with deep ruthlessness. Don't try to use your luck to save you. That pill from before was a treasure that 5 Dao Lords had worked together to refine for over 100 years. Once you come into contact with it, the pill's energy will enter your body and conceal the pearl. So you have nothing now. Shuimeng Feiyu had put in a lot of effort to wait for this day. I wanted to observe for a while longer to make sure that nothing went wrong before taking action. Unfortunately, Big Brother Jingyan said that something big has happened recently. It might be very dangerous there, and I need some luck. So, I can only take action in advance. Shuimeng Feiyu took out an ice blade and walked in front of the greedy Wolf King. She raised the ice blade and slashed at the greedy Wolf King's abdomen. She said indifferently, "Don't blame me for being ruthless. Who asked Big Brother Jingyan to like your luck?" She had a morbid look on her face as she slashed down with the blade. The greedy Wolf King let out a shrill cry. A gash appeared on his abdomen and blood flowed out. If he suffered another slash, his inner world would be split open. At that time, he would become a cripple. At the critical moment, the greedy Wolf King suddenly bit his tongue and spat out a mist of blood. The mist of blood weaved into a blood net in front of him and blocked Shuimeng Feiyu's second slash. His face was ferocious and his mouth was filled with hatred and venom. Bastard couple, you want to steal my luck? Dream on. All of a sudden, a thunderous sound came from his abdomen. Then, a misty, illusory, fist-sized pearl flew out from his abdomen. With a pop, it entered Su Yu's abdomen. Shuimeng Feiyu was stunned and frowned slightly. What was the point of this? She was just cutting open another person's abdomen. Bitch, just as you said, there is something about the Taoist pearl of the Master of Luck that you have yet to fully understand. That is, he can choose his master a second time. Moreover, if you take it out again after the second time, it will disappear immediately. Hearing that, Shuimeng Feiyu's face turned grave. Haha, bitch, you won't get anything. Her years of hard work had gone up in smoke in an instant. Even if she cut open Su Yu's abdomen, she would only get a useless Taoist pearl that had lost its power. I don't believe it. Shuimeng Feiyu carried the ice blade and came before Su Yu. She slashed down with the blade indignantly. Unexpectedly, before the blade could land, the frozen Su Yu suddenly spoke. I am afraid of pain. Please don't cut me. What? Shuimeng Feiyu was taken aback by Su Yu's sudden words. Even a pathmaster might not be able to break free from the frozen state just now. Sensing that something was amiss, Shuimeng Feiyu's blade slashed down even faster. However, at that moment, a layer of strange sand flowed out from the surface of Su Yu's body, adhering to the surface of his body. The ice blade slashed down, but Su Yu was not harmed in the slightest. Instead, the sand was squeezing out, causing the ice that had frozen Su Yu to explode. Shuimeng Feiyu's expression changed greatly. She had heard that Su Yu was quite powerful, and she might not be a match for him. Seeing that Su Yu was about to break free, she immediately took out a jade bottle and poured out a large amount of water droplets, intending to freeze Su Yu once again. However, a wall of sand immediately appeared in front of Su Yu, blocking the water droplets outside. Shuimeng Feiyu was flustered. Su Yu had removed the frozen state on his own, causing her to be in a disadvantageous position. Seeing that she could not do anything, she could only give up bitterly. Turning around, she leaped into the air to escape. Leave? Who gave you permission? Su Yu smiled indifferently. With a wave of his hand, the sand condensed into a rod. He leaped into the air and struck Shuimeng Feiyu down from the air with the rod. Crack! Crack! Cracking sounds could be heard from the surface of her body. All of the top-grade defensive treasures on her body had been crushed. Even the fairy embryo of a doctrine artifact can be shattered. How is this possible? Shuimeng Feiyu screamed miserably as she fell to the ground. Looking at the shattered belt on his waist, he shrieked in disbelief. How could she have known that the rod contained a speck of world destruction dust? Unless it was a top-grade fairy embryo of a doctrine artifact, it was rare for it not to be shattered. The rod had also severely injured Shui Meng Feiyu. She was lying on the ground, spitting out mouthfuls of blood. Her limbs were twitching, but she could not move at all. She was severely injured. Suyu cast a seal and sealed Shui Meng Feiyu. Then, he threw her into a storage space. Tam Lang, who was sealed in ice, looked up to the sky and laughed heartily. Ha ha! Evil will be punished. Evil will be punished. Even a B***TCH would have such a day. Seeing Shui Meng Feiyu's fate, he could not help but applaud. He said, "Wen Shang, bring me back quickly. I will reward you handsomely." He was very glad that he had encountered the powerful Wen Shang. Otherwise, he would have been killed by that B***TCH. Go back. Back to the Pirate Alliance? All right. However, so you said something that made the Tamlang King's limbs turn cold. In the future, if he missed any updates, he would be compensated with 5 updates. Chapter 22:13. The greedy Wolf King stared at Suyu, his mind buzzing. He stammered, "Are you from the Pirate Alliance?" Suyu smiled without saying a word. Looking at Suyu's smile, the greedy Wolf King's heart felt as if it had fallen into an ice cellar. At the same time, many of the unexplainable questions in the past suddenly became clear. Why did such a talented and intelligent Heaven's favorite suddenly appear in the second most powerful family? Why did he coincidentally appear at the observatory and defeat the pirate vice-captain? How did he know the location of the pirates' newest lair and lead everyone to plunder it? Because he was a member of the Pirate Alliance. Everything she had done had only one goal, and that was to get close to him. A trace of self-deprecation flashed across the corners of greedy Wolf King's mouth. I admit defeat. He was thoroughly convinced by such an exquisite setup. However, I would like to know, how will you deal with this bitch? The greedy Wolf King had already accepted his fate after falling into the hands of the Pirate Alliance. The one who was most unwilling to accept this was Snow Dream Flying Rain, who had caused him to end up like this. Without her betrayal, how could he, who possessed the karmic luck pearl, end up in such a helpless state? Suyu calmly said, "I will end up the same as you." Hee, then I'm relieved. The greedy Wolf King's eyes were filled with hatred. As a man, if he fell into the hands of the Pirate Alliance, he would only suffer a little. Sooner or later, the pirates would return him as a hostage. However, this woman was a peerless fairy whose name shook the 7 absolute civilizations. It went without saying what would happen to her if she fell into the hands of the pirates. At the very least, he would be violated by pirates who had no moral bottom line. Thinking of his fate, greedy Wolf King felt the anger in his heart subside a little. Fine, follow me. The small Kylan appeared on Suyu's shoulder, and it spat out a mouthful of void power, which engulfed both of them. The isolation of the void completely blocked their auras and even their connection with the outside world. It would not be easy for the people guarding them to track them. Almost at the same time, the female Tao Lord, who was guarding the greedy Wolf King, sensed that her connection with the greedy Wolf King had been cut off. Something's wrong. The female Taoist master's expression darkened, and she immediately teleported into the room. Other than the remaining ice fragments on the ground, there was no trace of the greedy Wolf King and the Snow Dream Flying Rain. Who did it? The female Daylord's heart sank when she realized that there was no aura to track. She immediately notified Emperor Pajuan. Emperor Vanquisher remained calm. The greedy Wolf King had been kidnapped more than once or twice, but every time there was luck in the dark, and he would always be able to avoid danger. Now that he was suddenly kidnapped, he believed that the greedy Wolf King had sealed his aura. Greed should be fine, but we can't be careless. Activate the formation and seal off the border of the second peerless family. Strictly prevent anyone from entering or leaving for a month. Suddenly, a bronze lion as tall as a human emerged from the ground at the 8 borders of the second peerless family. The lion faced the sky and spat out a large expanse of dark green light. From 8 directions, it completely enveloped the second peerless clan, forming a dark green bowl-shaped seal. This seal was extremely powerful. Even a Tao master would need to spend a long time to break through a single point of the formation. Such a huge commotion would definitely attract the attention of the powerhouses of the second peerless family. However, 10 days had passed. It was as if the greedy Wolf King had vanished from the face of the earth. He did not return as Pajuan Emperor had expected. Only now did Emperor Defeating Army realize that something had happened to greedy Wolf King. Did you find out anything about that one, Shang? Emperor Defeating Armies' face sank as he asked. In front of him stood 9 Tao masters who were on standby. The beautiful woman shook her head slightly and said, "His face has always been concealed, so there is no way to find out." The female Tao master who was in charge of protecting the greedy Wolf King felt ashamed and said, "I went to the oasis where Wen Shang is to investigate. In the end, there was no such person." For a time, the air in the hall seemed to have frozen, and it was suffocating. Everyone could feel the violent killing intent hidden within Emperor Defeating Armies. The abduction of the greedy Wolf King had touched Emperor Defeating Armies' reverse scale. Mo Yuan, do you have anything to report? Emperor Defeating Armies suddenly realized that Tao Master Mo Yuan was stroking his chin with a contemplative expression. Tao Master Mo Yuan frowned and said, "Patriarch, when Shang first arrived, what kind of human demon did he kill? Can I see its image?" Seeing that Tao Master Mo Yuan seemed to have some clues, Emperor Defeating Armies immediately summoned the white-robed sword god and morning flower lady. The two of them had seen it with their own eyes. Under Emperor Defeating Armies' command, the two of them drew the image of the human demon. After that, Tao Master Mo Yuan began to ponder. Mo Yuan, speak your mind, Emperor Defeating Armies said. Tao Master Mo Yuan thought for a while and said, "Patriarch, I have an unrealistic thought. Speak." Perhaps the one who abducted the greedy Wolf King wasn't some pirate, but the number 1 peerless family. Hearing this, the already tense atmosphere in the hall tensed up again. Emperor Defeating Armies' expression was solemn. "Why do you say that? If it really was done by the number 1 peerless family, then it would involve a war between the aristocratic families. It was no small matter. I once saw this demon in the hands of a junior from the number 1 peerless family, young noble Wu Chun. Back then, he summoned this human demon and neutralized my domain attack, which allowed him to escape back to the number 1 peerless family. I suspect that when Shang, who killed the human demon, is actually young noble Wu Chun." Before Emperor Defeating Armies realized anything, the beautiful woman in the palace gown had already exclaimed, "Young noble Wu Chun? It's him?" Emperor Defeating Armies' eyes flashed when he heard her surprise. "Oh, Tao Master Celestial Flower, you know this person?" She didn't just know him. She had planned for many years at Broken Sky Mountain, and just as she was about to succeed, her plan was ruined by this person. Therefore, she told him everything that had happened at Broken Sky Mountain. After that, she said, "Family Master, this person is extremely cunning, and his behavior is very similar to Wen Shang's. It is very likely that young noble Wu Chun is Wen Shang." After hearing this, Emperor Defeating Armies' face twitched with uncontrollable anger. Even he had been deceived. Someone sent a message to the number 1 peerless family and demand an explanation from them. Emperor Defeating Armies said, "At the same time, mobilize all forces and dig 3 feet into the ground. Find Wen Shang for me." As soon as the family master gave the order, the entire aristocratic family started operating in an orderly manner. From a stellar sky city to a small mortal village, they were conducting a large-scale search for any suspicious individuals. Regardless of the influence, regardless of whether it was a commoner, the places where they lived were searched thoroughly. For a moment, the people were filled with grievances, and the normal life and work of the entire aristocratic family was interrupted. The aristocratic families were in a deep panic, in a certain oasis. While the outside world was in a state of chaos, Su was leisurely sipping tea and reading a book in a coffin shop. "Su Rushu, you can't escape." Tanlang was sitting opposite him. His body was still frozen, and he couldn't move at all. His whole body was still enveloped by the small Kylan's nothingness, so his aura couldn't leak out. He already knew Su Yu's real identity. He was the Seawolves Pirates' deputy leader, Su Rushu. Facing his angry eyes, Su Yu's expression didn't change, and he continued reading the incomplete text in front of him. It was Xuanmeng Feiyu's heaven-devouring 18-character scripture. Back then, he had only read it roughly and didn't read it carefully. Now that he had the leisure to read it carefully, he decided to read it carefully. Xuanmeng Feiyu looked at the incomplete text, then at Su Yu. She was calm, and she took the initiative to pour Su Yu a cup of tea. She said softly, "I didn't recognize you, and I offended you. I hope you can forgive me." She was very humble. There was only one man in the world whom she had treated in this way. That was Su Yu. Su Rushu was the second. "You didn't offend me," Su Yu said calmly. She hadn't offended him, and she only wanted to harm him. To be honest, if she hadn't had any inappropriate thoughts about Su Yu, he wouldn't have bothered to capture her. It was a pity that the what-ifs in this world only existed in the past. Xuanmeng Feiyu's eyes were filled with joy, but before she could show it, she heard Su Yu say calmly, "However, you are the heir of the 6th peerless family. If I bring you back, I should be able to exchange you for many benefits." Xuanmeng Feiyu's pretty face turned slightly pale. She knew very well what would happen if she really fell into the hands of the Pirate Alliance. "Mr. Su, if you want benefits, why don't you return me to the 6th peerless family? That would be more beneficial to you, wouldn't it?" Xuanmeng Feiyu's pretty eyes flickered. Su Yu could use her as a hostage to extort money from the 6th peerless family, and everything he got would belong to him. However, if he handed her over to the Pirate Alliance, it would be great if he could reward Su Yu with 10% of the extorted items. Su Yu looked at her and smiled softly. "Now that you've fallen into my hands, you don't have to play tricks anymore. You can't afford what I want." "Not even the heaven-devouring 18-character scripture?" Xuanmeng Feiyu said, biting her red lips. Su Yu shook the remnant of the scripture, then shook his head and laughed. "I think you should remind your brother Jingyun that this scripture ends here. If he continues to cultivate it, the consequences will be dire." His eyes shone with a mysterious light. Xuanmeng Feiyu was silent, but she did not think much of it. The heaven-devouring 18-character scripture was the cultivation technique cultivated by the Tianyi Great Emperor. It was by relying on this scripture that he could create the Tianyi civilization and become a great emperor. So he was arrogant enough to say that this scripture had serious drawbacks? The ignorant were truly fearless. At that moment, Wang Xin walked over and said, "Deputy Leader Su, everything is ready." Su Yu put down the remnant scripture and nodded slightly. "Thank you for your hard work these days." He took out a space storage device, which was filled with the treasures that he had plundered from Xiaoya's treasury. "Take it." Su Yu threw it to him and said, "Also, change your identity and location. The greedy Wolf King would be returned as a hostage sooner or later. By then, Wang Xin would definitely be exposed." "Thank you, Deputy Leader Su. I know what to do." Wang San was overjoyed. Su Yu stood up and led the greedy Wolf King and Xuanmeng Feiyu to the wasteland outside the city. The space there cracked open, and a Wanzhong beast poked its head out. Su Yu leaped onto it and jumped in. As the Wanzhong beast traveled, it finally stopped at the edge of a desert. "Border," the greedy Wolf King said. He looked at the light screen that was inches away and said in a low voice, "Even the power of a Pathmaster would find it difficult to break this seal. Moreover, attacking it without permission will alert the king's mansion." What he meant was that Su Yu should give up and not do any useless work. Chapter 22:14. Swoosh. Swoosh. At the other end of the border, on the other side of the light screen, 4 figures immediately appeared. They knelt down on one knee and said, "Greetings, Deputy Leader Su. The formation is ready." The 4 of them stepped forward and stood in front of the light screen. Suddenly, a bright light flowed under their feet, and a formation that had been prepared beforehand appeared. Seeing this formation, the last bit of hope in the greedy Wolf King's heart was completely shattered. He said in despair, "Supreme Mysterious Displacement Formation." Xuanmeng Feiyu also recognized this formation. Her delicate body trembled slightly as she murmured, "Supreme mysterious displacement formation, a formation that needs to be set up 3 months in advance to be successful. Moreover, it can only exist for 3 days." She stared at Suyu, her heart filled with suffocation. In other words, Suyu had already predicted that the border would be sealed 3 months ago. He had also planned an escape route and grasped the timing perfectly. His schemes were too deep, too deep. It was so profound that it made people feel despair. "Activate." Suyu walked forward, carrying the two of them. A supreme mysterious displacement formation also appeared under their feet. This formation was one of the few great formations that could restrain other formations. As long as it was set up in advance on both sides of the formation, it could be exchanged for the living beings inside and outside. As soon as they stepped on it, the powerful formation power was activated. The next moment, the 4 black-clothed people outside the seal appeared in the formation where Su Yu and the two of them had stood. Su Yu and the others went to the formation outside. Finally, they had left the territory of the second peerless family. The formation under their feet immediately cracked and became abandoned. "Disperse immediately." The 4 black-clothed people immediately fled in different directions. So you took out a warship and took off immediately. The activation of the supreme mysterious displacement formation must have alerted the Pajuan Emperor, so they couldn't stay here for long. As expected, after a few days, the Pajuan Emperor, the 5 Pathmasters, and a large number of people arrived. Looking at the broken supreme mysterious displacement formation, the Pajuan Emperor's face was gloomy. "I can't believe such a lost ancient formation was created. Mr. Wuchen really planned this. This formation was said to have been lost in the last era. He didn't expect Mr. Wuchen to be able to set it up. Master, should we barge into the first peerless family to ask for the person?" The beautiful woman in the palace dress, who was the fairy flower pathmaster, asked with a frown. If they barged in, it would be an official battle between the 2 great families. This was the last thing they wanted to see. There's no other way. Emperor Defeating Army's face was as cold as ice. The greedy Wolf King was his most expected successor. If something happened to him, it would take a long time to cultivate a qualified successor. The Tao Lords nodded slowly. Just as he was about to charge in, Emperor Defeating Armies suddenly received a message. Crushing it, Zhang Xian's eyes narrowed. It was a message from the golden-eyed playboy. The content was that young Master Dustless had betrayed the number 1 peerless family and joined the Pirate Alliance. There was also a variety of other information attached to it, which proved that golden-eyed Lang Jun did not make up lies. The Pirate Alliance. Emperor Defeating Army was enraged. After going around in a circle, it was still the pirates' doing. Chase. There weren't that many taboos in the void. The Pathmaster directly teleported into the void, while the rest of the people boarded the warships and left in full force. The number 1 peerless family. The information in front of the golden-eyed playboy's eyes flew like snow. The corners of his mouth curled up into a look of deep surprise. "Father, why are the reports changing so frequently?" Bai Yun Hongxian, who was summoned by her father, walked in and looked curiously at the reports flying in. The golden-eyed playboy told her what happened in the number 2 peerless family. After listening, Bai Yun Hongxian's pretty eyes widened, and she said in disbelief, "How is this possible? Not to mention that the greedy Wolf King has great luck. No one can harm him at all. Moreover, the greedy Wolf King is in the number 2 peerless family, and he has Pathmasters by his side all year round. How can anyone kidnap him? You don't understand, and neither do I." The golden-eyed playboy could not figure out how Su Yu had successfully kidnapped the greedy Wolf King. If Xiao Rukin, who was known as the Shocking Cloud, had been kidnapped, he would not have been so surprised. The greedy Wolf King's mysterious physique was something that even the Pathmasters could not do anything about. How did Su Rusha do it? Amazing. Bai Yin Hongxian thought for a moment, and a look of approval appeared on her face. Being able to do what others could not. This was the impression Bai Yun Hongxian had of Su Rushu. In addition, Xuan Meng Feiyu, who was a guest in the number 2 peerless family, was also kidnapped. The golden-eyed playboy looked at Bai Yun Hongxian meaningfully. Princess Peepa was also kidnapped? Bai Yun Hongxian was completely shocked. Xuanmeng Fiyu, who was known as Princess Peepa, was one of the two peerless beauties who were on an equal footing with her. Her strength was said to be very powerful, second only to the greedy Wolf King, but she had been kidnapped together. This Su Rushu, in order to gain the trust of the pirates, has really done something earth-shattering, the golden-eyed playboy said frankly. He did not expect Su Yu to be so capable. Bai Yun Hongxian, on the other hand, was not so surprised. With Su Yu's wisdom when he saved her, the scene in front of them was unexpected, but reasonable. No matter what, Su Yu has done something that is very beneficial to the number one peerless family, the golden-eyed playboy said. Especially beneficial to you. Me? Bai Yun Hongxian was very intelligent, and, after a slight pause, she understood what he meant. With one less powerful competitor, she would have a better chance of marrying Ren Jingyun, right? Father, it is still too early to talk about this, Bai Yun Hongxian said softly. Huh? The golden-eyed playboy laughed meaningfully. In the void, in the direction of the pirate's lair, there were countless strong men of the number two peerless family. They were searching all the civilizations along the way to prevent Su Yu from using the Wanzhong beast of those civilizations to teleport back to the Pirate Alliance. In a certain civilization, in a pavilion on the peak of a mountain, looking at a crack in the space, Xuanmeng Fiyu bit her red lips tightly. There was really no hope. Su Yu had even figured out that there was a Wanzhong beast in this civilization, and he was well prepared. He had already arranged a perfect escape route, so that they wouldn't have any chance to escape. I really admit defeat. The greedy Wolf King had seen how meticulous Su Yu was, and there was no hope of escaping. Su Yu frowned slightly. The Wanzhong beast in front of him had appeared more than 2 days later than expected. Under normal circumstances, it should have left 2 days ago. Has someone disturbed the Wanzhong beast and caused it to delay? Su Yu looked back at the void behind him. He did not know if there was enough time. As if to confirm his thoughts, several powerful breaths came from beyond the sky. After they appeared, they rushed to the places where the Wanzhong beast might appear and conducted a strict search. One of the slightly familiar breaths was rushing to where Su Yu was. His heart sank slightly. When the Wanzhong beast was traveling, it was not advisable to be disturbed. Otherwise, the Wanzhong beast would panic and take it to a place that it might never return from. Even if the person who came was not strong, he still had the ability to disturb the Wanzhong beast. Therefore, if this person really arrived in time, he had to be killed. As the breath of the newcomer approached, Su Yu saw an old woman who looked to be over 60 years old from afar. She was none other than Guest Elder Lu. Guest Lu looked left and right, looking for suspicious people. Suddenly, her gaze swept across the peak of the mountain and found 3 people standing there with no breath. 2 of them were the greedy Wolf King and Xuanmeng Fiyu. In the middle was a man in a bamboo hat. Guest Lu's face lit up, and she immediately crushed a communication jade pendant. She then looked at the Wanzhong beast, who had yet to appear, and sneered. Mr. Wuchen, you can't escape. With his identity exposed, Su Yu naturally would not hide anymore. He took off his bamboo hat, revealing the face that Guest Lu wanted to destroy with her own hands every night. An old man who does not die is a thief. Guest Lu, you really changed your appearance and became the loyal dog of the second peerless family, Su Yu said calmly. Cold energy flowed all over Guest Lu's body, and she exploded with a shocking murderous intent. She laughed loudly. Little bastard, isn't this all thanks to you? If you had not framed me and wrongly accused me, how could I have really betrayed you? Hearing this, the greedy Wolf King and Xuanmeng Fiyu revealed strange expressions. Su Rushu was really scheming at every turn. Looking at Guest Lu, who looked like she wanted to eat Su Yu alive, only the heavens knew how badly she had been framed. I feel that even the young men of the first peerless family would be grateful to me if you betrayed me, Su Yu said with a smile. Guest Lu's face trembled, and she stared at Su Yu. If looks could kill, Su Yu would have been cut into pieces and died 10,000 times. Crack! The space behind him fluctuated. The Wanzong beast was about to appear. Guest Lu's eyes turned, and she slowly retreated backward. There was no need to elaborate on what she was planning. Su Yu's expression was indifferent. He took a step forward and said, "I can only kill you first." "Haha, do you think you're worthy?" Guest Lu was not angry, but delighted. If Su Yu really had the ability to kill a strong man like the killing demon, she would still be wary of Su Yu. Unfortunately, she could now confirm that it was a self-directed play by Su Yu. His true strength was only that of an ordinary half-path master. You underestimate the strength of a former Guest Lu. Guest Lu stopped in her tracks, and her old face was covered with coldness. "Actually, I can destroy you like a dog." As she spoke the last word, she had already released more than half of her realm of principles. "Die." She laughed maliciously and released 10,000 naked male bodies. One young man after another was coquettishly in the realm of principles, winking at her. But they were all hiding sharp blades in the dark. It would be very dangerous to fall into the realm of principles. The blue veins on Su Yu's forehead throbbed. It really is a realm of principles. Both her personality and this realm of principles were the same, and it gave people goosebumps all over. "Haha, I am not a human demon, and you can hit me as you please." Guest Lu sneered. "Die." The realm of principles suddenly rushed over. 10,000 naked young men rushed over with open arms. Su Yu felt his hair stand on end. Heavenly Dragon Taoist body. He transformed into a half-dragon and slashed down with a dragon claw. Crack. The realm of principles was directly torn apart from the middle. The naked man inside instantly vanished into thin air. Su Yu's claw did not stop, and with irresistible force, he tore Guest Lu's Taoist body apart. How is this possible? Guest Lu looked down at her cracked Taoist body, her face full of disbelief. Chapter 22:15. Her body had clearly been completely transformed. How could it be destroyed so easily? Su Yu said indifferently, "Actually, killing you would be as easy as killing a dog. If not for his status, he could have killed Guest Lu long ago at the Broken Heaven Mountain." Of course, it was not too late now. Swish! Guest Lu's soul flew out of his body, but before it could escape, it was devoured by Su Yu's soul vortex. Looking at the domain dissipating with the wind, Su Yu felt a chill run down his spine. He said, if this domain could kill people, it would be disgusting. Crack! At that moment, the space cracked once again. The Wanzong beast was about to appear. Su Yu returned to the peak of the mountain and stared at the space, feeling slightly nervous. Guest Lu had already informed the strong men of the second peerless family, but he did not know if they would make it in time. After a cup of tea's time, finally, the space cracked and a Wanzong beast emerged. Su Yu was about to bring the two of them up when he suddenly stopped in his tracks. He stared at the sky with a deep gaze. The majestic aura of the Path Masters descended in a frenzy. He would probably arrive before the Wanzong beast left. At that time, he would only need to move a finger to interfere with the Wanzong beast. And Su Yu would not be able to fight back on the Wanzong beast. How troublesome. I can only use the power of all the Path Masters. Su Yu drew out the sinful sword, his heart sinking. If that happened, he would not even be able to move when he returned to the vicinity of the Pirate Alliance. Then, if he encountered pirates with malicious intentions, it would be hard to say what would happen. More than 90% of the pirates were criminals of all kinds. Killing and robbing was a common occurrence for them. However, if he fell into the hands of the second peerless family, he would undoubtedly die. As he made up his mind, the Path Master who had come to inquire about him appeared in this civilization. Su Yu only felt his vision blur before he saw the person clearly. It really is you. Coincidentally, the person also knew Su Yu. Ha, it's been a long time. Su Yu smiled faintly. It was the beautiful woman in the palace gown, the fairy flower Path Master. Her almond-shaped eyes contained a faint chill as she said, "You ruined my plans, stole my treasure, and even dared to come to the second peerless family to kidnap our young master. Mr. Wuchen, I really admire your courage." "You flatter me." As Su Yu spoke calmly, he slowly raised the sinful sword in his hand, and a wisp of hidden sharpness spread out like a snake's tongue. The celestial flower Daylord's pupils constricted slightly, and her heart skipped a beat for no reason. After many years of cultivation, her intuition told her that Su Yu was in grave danger. "Young Master Dustless, do you think you can escape?" Daylord Immortal Flower did not act rashly. However, Su Yu continued to press on. He calmly said, "You don't have to use your little trick of diverting my attention on me. Aren't you just trying to make me forget about your young master?" The celestial flower Daylord's expression remained the same, but there was a hint of stiffness in his expression. "Now, quit this civilization immediately." Hearing this, the celestial flower Daylord fell into deep thought and continued to stall for time. However, Su Yu did not give her a chance. "If you do not leave before the Wanzong beast appears, then I will have to kill your young master." He pulled back with one hand, and immediately Greedy Wolf King was sucked into his palm, grabbing its neck. That arm transformed into a dragon arm and suddenly exerted force. Immediately, Greedy Wolf King's neck creaked, as if it was about to be broken. The celestial flower Daylord's gaze froze, and she said in a low voice, "Do you know the consequences?" Su Yu calmly said, "Whether I kill him or not, the consequences are the same for me." No matter how she treated Greedy Wolf King, once Su Yu was captured by the second peerless family, she would never let him go. The celestial flower Daylord felt troubled. Su Yu had a hostage in his hands, and for a while, she really could not do anything to him. Turning her gaze, the celestial flower Daylord gritted her teeth and said, "Fine, I'll go. Otherwise, if anything happens to Greedy Wolf King, the fault may fall on me." If she caused Greedy Wolf King's death, not only would she have no merit, but she would also be guilty. Rather than that, she might as well retreat now. There will be no merit or fault. Whoosh! The celestial flower Daylord acted decisively and left immediately. In the blink of an eye, her aura disappeared from the civilization. Su Yu's brows were deeply furrowed, and he coldly snorted. "Do you think I'm easy to fool?" Under the detection of the heavenly eyes, the celestial flower Daylord did not leave. Instead, she drew out a whiff of her aura and shot it into the nothingness beyond the sky. She herself was hiding nearby, waiting for the moment when Su Yu stepped on the Wanzong beast and startled it. There was no sound in the nothingness. Su Yu's eyes were slightly cold, and he gently slashed at a certain spot in the nothingness. A sword mark streaked across a certain place, causing the space there to distort unnaturally. A figure with a gloomy expression appeared. It was the celestial flower Daylord. She threatened angrily, "Mr. Wuchen, the dignity of the second peerless family cannot be offended. Even if we have to sacrifice a young master, we will never allow you to succeed." Since ancient times, there had never been an heir of one of the 7 peerless families who had been successfully kidnapped by pirates. If the second peerless family set a precedent, they would no longer have the face to stand among the 7 peerless families. Therefore, she would rather the Greedy Wolf King die at Su Yu's hands and allow him to be brought back to the Pirate Alliance. Su Yu's brows were deeply furrowed. After all, they were one of the 7 peerless families. It would not be easy to force them to submit with just a single young master. Since that was the case, he could only use some tricks and kill the celestial flower Daylord by force. Grasping the sinful sword, Su Yu mobilized the strength of the Daylord in his body and prepared to activate the Sword of Dawn and Dusk. But at that moment, a wave of boiling heat suddenly came from within Su Yu's inner world. In the unseen world, a mysterious destiny was flourishing. The Great Pearl of Destiny? Su Yu was surprised. The Greedy Wolf King had inserted the Great Pearl into Su Yu's body and had successfully chosen its master for the second time. But why would it suddenly activate at such a critical moment? Could it be that something unexpected was going to happen? Crack! At that moment, the space behind him had completely left, and the Wanzong beast poked its head out from within. Strangely, there was a slightly confused woman standing on the back of the Wanzong beast. She was dressed in a golden cloak and had a 7-colored crown on her head. Her features were delicate and elegant. She was like a queen who had descended upon the world. Xiaoya. The celestial flower Dowlord gasped, immediately recognizing who the person in front of her was. But hadn't Xiaoya already returned to the Pirate Alliance? How could she appear on the Wanzhong beast? Xiaoya composed herself and scanned the surroundings. Her gaze landed on the celestial flower Dowlord, and she heaved a sigh of relief, revealing a look of relief. What a blessing from the heavens! I can't believe I came back alive. It turned out that Xiaoya and the others had returned to the Pirate Alliance's lair at top speed. In order to save time, Xiaoya had used a place where the Wanzhong beast appeared that she was very familiar with. Who knew that as soon as she landed, there would be a major upheaval in that civilization? A few martial artists who were unaware of the situation were fighting nearby. The Wanzhong beast was alarmed, and it fled in panic into space, not stopping for more than a month. Xiaoya had already made up her mind to wander about in the endless barren land, never to return. But just now, the Wanzhong beast who was running was suddenly struck by some kind of power. Its body tilted to the side, and it crashed into the nearby space barrier. Then just like that, it suddenly appeared. What made Xiaoya even more overjoyed was that the place where it appeared was not a place that was too far away for her to return to, but not far away from the second peerless family. The celestial flower Dowlord turned and fled without hesitation, her heart filled with extreme shock. Of all the people she could have run into, she had to run into the number one person in the Pirate Alliance, Xiaoya. How could her unusual movements escape Xiaoya's eyes? Perhaps this is the will of the heavens. During the great battle, none of the Dowlords of the second peerless family were harmed. But now, you have delivered yourself to me. Since that is the case, I will accept it without hesitation. Xiaoya's lips kept squirming, as if she was chanting some profound incantation. The celestial flower Dowlord, who was fleeing, shuddered violently, and her whole body turned into wisps of green smoke. Then, she burst into flames with a bang. In an extremely short period of time, she was burned to ashes. The dignified celestial flower Dowlord had died in the hands of Xiaoya, who had appeared out of nowhere. Suyu was stunned as he watched from the side. This was the greedy Wolf King's destiny? It was so evil that it rendered people speechless. The greedy Wolf King could not help but smile bitterly. He had thought that he had seen another chance to escape from death's door, but who knew that the opportunity would be ruined by the destiny that should have belonged to him. After killing the celestial flower Dowlord, Xiaoya sized up Suyu. She had wanted to kill him casually, but she suddenly realized that Suyu was strangling the greedy wolf young master of the second peerless family. She could not help but be surprised. "You are." Suyu naturally did not dare to hide anything. He immediately said, "I am the deputy leader of the Sea Wolves Pirates, Su Rushu. I have come under orders to capture the greedy Wolf King." Hearing that, Xiaoya's eyes were filled with disbelief. She knew that another deputy leader of the Sea Wolves Pirates was carrying out the mission to capture the greedy Wolf King. When the 10 great pirates had discussed it, none of the pirate leaders had been willing to accept the mission. Only the Sea Wolves Down Master had acted out of character and accepted the mission. Later, there were rumors that the Sea Wolves Down Master had given the mission to a deputy leader. Everyone knew that the Sea Wolves Down Master wanted to use the mission to kill someone. But what Xiaoya found unbelievable was that the deputy leader had actually succeeded. Who was the greedy Wolf King? Even Xiaoya felt uneasy dealing with that strange and unfathomable providence. Perhaps the greedy Wolf King's destiny would activate and kill her inexplicably. But the insignificant deputy leader before her had actually succeeded. "Release your soul. I want to examine it a little," Xiaoya said. Suyu frowned slightly, feeling resistant in his heart. "Don't worry, I will only examine your memories from this period of time." Xiaoya did not allow him to argue. Her eyes flickered with soul light as she flipped through Suyu's memories. After reading it, her eyes were filled with astonishment. "Unbelievable! You actually managed to sneak into the core circle of the second peerless family?" Xiaoya was extremely surprised by Suyu's careful and quick-witted mind. In terms of intelligence alone, Su Yu was even better than most of the Eternal Path Masters. But then, she laughed angrily. I was wondering why the nest of the Pirate Alliance would be robbed. So it was you. Su Yu's heart sank.